Mr Healy has also revealed he's considering how the UK can defend shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. In his first written statement broadcast on state television, Iran's new supreme leader has promised to continue to block the strait. Mojtaba Khamenei says it will remain closed as the cost of a barrel of oil reached more than $100 again overnight. Former chief economist at the US Department of Agriculture, Joseph Glauber, has told Andrew Marr food prices could be the next thing to rise.
Iraq and Iran do have their own production, grain production, oilseed production, but still a lot of vegetable oils go through the Strait of Hormuz. A lot of sugar does. So shutting off the transit in there will force those countries to find alternative routes.
A 60-year-old British man has reportedly been arrested in Dubai for posting about missile strikes during the war. The campaign group detained in Dubai say he and 20 others have been charged under cybercrime laws. Authorities there put out a warning last week about posts that could incite panic. UAE ambassador to the UK, Mansour Abulhoul, has told LBC they aren't censoring people.
It's important we get the right information out to people, the clear information. I mean, God forbid if people, are using AI to generate stuff. We've been highly transparent about the projectiles and missiles with hourly updates from our Ministry of Defence in terms of these coming in. So it's not about censoring anything. It's just about keeping people safe.
A man armed with a rifle has rammed a truck into a synagogue in the US state of Michigan. The suspect was shot and killed by on-site security at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield. The facility houses a school and preschool, but it's believed all of the children are safe. Oakland County Sheriff Michael Bouchard has updated reporters at the scene.
No kids, this is the important thing, no kids or no staff was injured whatsoever. Okay? So we have no victims other than one of the lead security people was hit by the car and was taken to the hospital for treatment. That individual should be okay.
A mother of 10 has been jailed for 13 years for keeping a teenage girl as a house slave for more than 2 decades. 56-year-old Amanda Wixon from Tewkesbury was found guilty of forced labour and false imprisonment. The victim, who can't be named and is now in her 40s, came to live with her as a 16-year-old in 1995. And the UK asylum appeals backlog has almost doubled in a year to hit a new record high. There were 80,333 cases in the system at the end of December, up from 41,987 at the same point in 2024. The number of appeals which are successful has fallen from almost half to just over a third. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 48 points at 10,305. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.15. LBC weather, wet and windy with heavy rain pushing southeast across England tonight. Clear spells in the early hours, lows of -1. Breezy tomorrow with some sunny spells, blustery showers moving in from the west, highs of 10 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Amelia Cox.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 7:05 on LBC. Welcome to the programme. I'm Iain Dale. Now, this war has been going on for nearly 2 weeks now. Iran's new supreme leader has said today that he's going to continue blocking the Strait of Hormuz in his first official statement. We know that oil prices have gone up again today, which is a little odd given the amount of oil that was released onto the world markets yesterday. It's gone back over $100 a barrel. Nigel Farage says Iran is a bigger threat than Russia. And Donald Trump says he's not stopping until the job is done. So we know that public opinion in this country is broadly against the war. I think it's the same in America, the same in Europe. We know most of our political parties are against it. And I must admit, I feel a little bit of a lone voice on this. I've said right from the beginning that I would love to see a day when the Iranian people are set free. And that is really dominating my thoughts on this. I recognise that what the Americans and Israelis have done, it is a big risk, because in the end, if nothing changes in Iran, if the mullahs are still in control at the end of this, and a lot of people will think, well, what on earth was it all for? Given it seems as though the oil price rise is going to have severe effects on the world economy, not just ours, not just America's, not just Europe's, but the world economy. So has it all been worth it? Well, I would say it's probably too early to judge, a bit like Brexit, and I recognise that most people in this country, the majority of people, probably do not share my view. But the fact is that Iran has been waging a war against not just Israel, but one or two other Middle Eastern countries for many, many years. It's certainly been waging a war against people in the West, the bellicose threats against America, the 20 incidents that our security services have foiled on British soil, the number of Iranian citizens that come under attack from their own government in this country and throughout Europe. We know all these things happen. We know that they've been a nuclear threat. We know that they're trying to restore their nuclear capabilities. And we know that they've been basically a threat to the West for years. So I'm not going to apologise for wanting to see the end of this brutal regime, particularly after they killed 40,000 of their own citizens for protesting in January. But why is it that my view is not the majority view in this country? Is it because it is just because Israel and America have done it? So therefore, people think, well, we don't like Donald Trump, we don't like the Israeli government, so therefore we side with the Iranians. Is it as simple as that? Because if it is as simple as that, it's a very simplistic way to look at it, isn't it? It was a very evil way to look at it, I would say. So let's hear your views over the course of the next hour. Judging by the texts that are coming in, I think we can conduct the debate better than this person who's texted in, "Shut the F up, Dale. I presume you'll be signing up for military duty then. You're just a first-rate C-word." Thank you very much for that. I think we can elevate the debate a little bit above that, can't we? And this argument, well, if you're in favour of the war, why don't you sign up? Which is what Dan has said. If you want war so much, I don't want war, why don't you and your family go and sign up? Maybe because the army wouldn't really appreciate having 60-year-olds as members of the army. I mean, how about that for a start? 0345 6060 973. Well, Natasha Turak joins me, an independent Middle East correspondent based in Dubai. Natasha, very good evening to you. Where do you think we are in this war now, sort of 12 days on since it started? I mean, what's the view from Dubai?
The view from Dubai is that escalation seems like the most likely course of action right now. Just today, we heard comments from Iran's new supreme leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, who vowed to continue the fight. He said he believes the Strait of Hormuz should remain closed and pledged to continue attacks on Gulf countries. Of course, these are the closest targets to Iran. It's easier for Iran to reach the likes of the UAE and Qatar with ballistic missiles than it is for them to reach Israel. Here in the UAE, there is definitely a lot of fear over how long this will go on, how much capacity Iran has to carry on, because of course, missile stockpiles will run out. Missile batteries are being destroyed, but these Shahed drones are very cheap and easy to produce, and they are just coming in droves. Just to anecdotally, I was up until about 6 o'clock this morning because the jets flying overhead were so loud and flying so low, which suggests that they were going after drones. And, some of my friends in the Dubai Creek Harbor neighborhood were woken up by the drone attack that hit the residential building over there. So, and the financial district has been evacuated because of the IRGC's threats to banks. And it looks at this point that the people in charge of all of this, right, the leaders of the U.S., Israel, and Iran, none of them have suggested any negotiations or any willingness to back down at this point. So it's just a question of how long each side can outlast the other.
We hear a lot from Brits who've moved to Dubai whinging about what's happening because it's not what they were expecting. They escaped Britain to go to what they think they thought of as a safer, more peaceful place, and then this happens. But what about ordinary people on the streets of Dubai and the United Arab Emirates? I mean, what are they thinking about this? Because I don't imagine they thought that there would be this sort of reaction from Iran.
I'm glad you asked. Well, Certainly no one ever saw this happening. I mean, this region has seen its fair share of wars over the decades, and the UAE has managed to remain a safe haven and a sort of island of stability in over the course of all of this time. So this has definitely been a shock to everyone, but I can tell you here on the ground, it certainly, yes, things feel a bit tense, but people are still able to go about their daily lives. I mean, I'll be honest, I was at the beach on Sunday. My friends are still going to brunch. I know the UK press loves to bag on Dubai, and they love to get these sensationalist headlines. And there's this sort of hatred that I've noticed in the UK toward Brits who move to Dubai and, don't pay taxes and have sunshine 350 days a year. Of course, there are going to be people who leave and don't want to come back because they couldn't handle what they experienced, and that's fair. But the vast majority of people I know here, including Brits, are still here. They feel safe. It's an incredible privilege to be able to walk around at night and not have to look over your shoulder, to know that you can leave your bag on a table in a restaurant and it's not going to be stolen. I think there's a lot to say about the day-to-day safety that still makes people feel more comfortable, even when missiles are flying overhead.
And the oil price has spiked again today, over $100 a barrel. Why has that happened, given the fact that so much oil was released onto the market yesterday?
Indeed, the IEA released 400 million barrels of reserve crude to the markets. Oil still climbed. And I would say it's because this vital waterway, the Strait of Hormuz, through which 20% of the world's oil flows daily, is completely ground to a halt. Iran has started laying undersea mines in the strait, which means that even if ships have U.S. military escorts, they're still not safe. And so we have basically seen energy markets as well as major energy facilities being attacked and being compromised all around the region, not just oil, but gas. And to give you some perspective, in the States, residential heating oil prices in the U.S. surged above $5 a gallon for the first time since 2022, since Russia invaded Ukraine. And a gallon of diesel in Florida has gone up above $5 a gallon for the first time since 2022. So I think it's more market sentiment for the fear that this will continue for some time is what is keeping prices higher. And if you're wondering if President Trump is concerned about this, just today he said, stopping Iran is of greater interest to me than oil prices. When oil prices go up, the U.S. makes a lot of money. So if the guy in charge of the States doesn't seem too concerned, I don't see him backing down for this reason anytime soon.
Natasha, great to talk to you. Thank you very much indeed. That's Natasha Turek, an independent Middle East correspondent based in Dubai. We will be talking about Dubai after 9 o'clock. Why are we sneering at Brits who live in Dubai? Is it just because we think, well, they don't pay their taxes, so why should Britain help them? We'll come to that after 9. Tan Desi is chair of the Defence Select Committee and Labour MP for Slough. Tan, very good evening to you. 12 days on, where do you think we are now? And I know that the government position was always against what's going on, but do you think there is anything good that can come out of this?
Well, I'm glad that the UK had no involvement in the initial strikes by both Israel and the US. But it should also be noted, by the way, that the Iranian regime, including its late leader, Ayatollah Ali Khamenei, they are no friends of our country. But the situation that we find ourselves in after these several days of the war in Iran is that thousands of individuals have sadly lost their lives in the whole region, including US servicemen and women. And I'm also concerned for the safety of the millions of people in the region, especially the hundreds of thousands of British nationals who are either residing there or the thousands in various Middle Eastern nations who are still stranded there. I'm glad that the government is moving along with allies to help repatriate those individuals back to the UK. But the problem still remains is that there doesn't seem to be sufficient safety for many people from, in particular, the one-way attack drones. And that's why I think the government must do everything possible to help de-escalate the situation, working with allies, because that's the way that we can bring not just peace in the region, but also help with our own cost of living crisis. Because as you rightly mentioned, to your previous guest, that there is a spike in oil prices, and that will lead, unfortunately, to inflationary pressures here for my Slough constituents and others.
I imagine you have constituents who originally come from Iran, and they will have been in contact with you not just over the past couple of weeks, but before, complaining about the Iranian regime. You rightly talk about the safety of our own people, but what about the safety of Iranians? Because we know their government has killed 40,000 people in the last few weeks after the protests. We know that they've killed hundreds of thousands of people over the years. They've been the launch pad for terrorism across the Middle East. Do we not have to bear that in mind when thinking about the rectitude of what's going on at the moment?
Well, look, as I said, the Iranian regime is no friend of ours. In fact, they have killed thousands of Iranians as they sought to suppress the freedom of protest, the freedom of speech in that country. I know that there are many in the diaspora, including in the UK, of Iranian heritage who are no fans of the Ayatollah's regime. In fact, most of the constituents that have got in touch with me, they're more concerned about their family and friends in other Middle Eastern nations, because I don't have as much an Iranian diaspora in Slough. However, what we need to do is to make sure that we do de-escalate, because our own Middle Eastern allies, they also want de-escalation because it's impacting hugely on their economy. And what I also want, the reason why I want the Prime Minister to act, is because I want the inflationary pressures that are now coming to the fore now in the UK, that I want those brought under control. I mean, I know the Prime Minister said that the UK economy has more headroom to deal with the Iran war, because inflation has been coming down, and it was on a trajectory to 2%. We've had half a dozen interest rate cuts, but now the fear is that we will see the Bank of England making moves to increase interest rates, inflation going up, and people paying for their petrol, that price is going to increase. So that is why we need to make sure that at a time when many people in our country are suffering from the cost of living crisis, the government must move to make measures in place to help people here, but also they must work with allies to defend not just our citizens out there, but also our friends. Because, I think a lot of people may not be actually aware that there are several UK military bases across the region, including in Bahrain, which I recently visited. There are the sovereign base areas on Cyprus. I had a visit recently to RAF Akrotiri. That's a very strategic base for us. And also, for example, in Qatar, by the way, is actually the RAF headquarters, so the Royal Air Force headquarters for Middle East operations. They're actually conducted through the Al Udeid Air Base in Qatar. So we owe it to our allies to actually take measures in a defensive formation to take down these drones and missiles, which are just coming at an inordinate pace from Iran.
But what about the Iranian people? I mean, you haven't really mentioned them at all. Surely that's what, in part, this is all about, trying to engineer a situation where Iran can get a better government, may not be a democracy, but something that is less evil than what they've got at the moment.
Well, Ian, as I said at the very outset, that the thousands of people who have been killed, including, it is already estimated, more than 1,500 in Iran. My heartfelt condolences to them, including the more than 100 children who were killed with an attack on one of the schools. There is going to be a lot of people who will be going through very, very difficult times. And while we are no fans of the regime, what we don't want to do is to get sucked into a war which is not our war. I know for several years, for example, Netanyahu has been trying to convince various US leaders, and in particular other European leaders as well, that we need to attack Iran. But up to now, various American presidents and European leaders, that's not the direction that they've taken. Unfortunately, Donald Trump has taken a very different position, but we are where we are. What we now need to do is, I'm in favour now, by the way, of the UK assisting in those defensive attacks on those places in Iran where we are seeing missiles being launched and drones being launched, because that's the only way that we can keep our nationals,
that's
our
not the
citizens
position
and
of
allies.
the UK government, is it? Though the position of the UK government is to let the Americans do our dirty work for us.
No, look, it just so happens that we don't have the capacity. We saw, for example, in that, it's wonderful now that the HMS Dragon is on its way, but we, as a Defence Committee, noted after our secret briefing recently on the operational briefing, while I can't go into the details of that briefing, one thing that we all came out from that, and while we issued a statement, is we are really concerned about the lack of capacity in the system, especially naval capacity. It was good that the government and the Ministry of Defence actually pre-positioned Typhoons, they pre-positioned F-35s, the counter-drone units, we got radars in place. However, our resources, and they have been hollowed out, unfortunately, over several years, that they are just not enough for us to be in several places at once. So that's why we need to now make sure that we accelerate investment into defence, and we need the government also to publish the defence investment plan.
Most people will agree with that. But the fact is,
I hope they do.
We do have the air capacity to launch missile strikes against the places where the Iranians are launching these things from to attack either British interests in the Gulf or in Cyprus. We have the Typhoons there to do that, but we're not using them. We're basically letting the Americans do what we should be doing. That's not due to a lack of air capacity.
No, Ian, sorry to correct you there, that the Typhoons, the F-35s are being used, and as the Defence Secretary and the Prime Minister highlighted on the floor of the House, but we just haven't got enough capacity. The sheer number of Shahid drones and the missiles that are coming over from Iran, it takes a concerted effort. The US, by far, obviously, has the scale, has the capacity to deal with that, and that's the reason why the UK has now given permission for the US to launch those defensive strikes from our air bases, in particular RAF Fairford, and obviously the flights going via Diego Garcia. The US, by the way, also has its own base in Cyprus and elsewhere, but we just need to bear in mind that while we are trying to project power, we just don't have the capacity. And that's what I would like LBC listeners and other people in the country to realise, that if we do not properly invest in our own defence, we will all be sorry. We have to be reliant. In fact, we've been over-reliant on the US, and the US has now turned around under Donald Trump to say, look, European allies, you need to sort your own backyard out. By the way, this war in Iran, why I don't want to get sucked in even further, is that we are not now in a position where we're being drawn away from the war within our own continent in Ukraine, where we need to help our Ukrainian friends.
We've got to leave it there because we've gone massively over time. Tan, thank you very much indeed. That's Tan Desi, Chair of the Defence Select Committee, Labour MP for Slough. We'll come to your calls in a moment. It's 7:24.
Weekdays from 7 a.m.
This is taxation without representation.
Straight to the point.
Do you get giddy with all these U-turns?
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Lucky he gets up in the morning, really, isn't it?
Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. Download it now from your app store. LBC.
BetMGM was born in Vegas. So just like the Cheltenham Festival, we know a thing or two about entertainment. Every ride, every race, every roar. This is Cheltenham Vegas style. Sign up to BetMGM now. Bet £10 and get £40 in free bets. That's right. Bet £10 and get £40 in free bets. Are you ready for the greatest show on turf? BetMGM. It's showtime. Minimum stake £10. New customers only. Wagering requirements and conditions apply. 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
JP Morgan Personal Investing gives you the clarity to make more informed decisions on your investments, which is great because right now something else just became crystal clear. Your kid just outgrew the kids menu. Now he's ordering a truffle gnocchi. You consider making a "don't gnocchi it till you try it" joke, but now's not the time. Now's the time to grow his world, one bite at a time. Search JP Morgan Personal Investing. Invest with clarity. Capital at risk.
And now your travel news. It's starting to look a bit congested on the A4872 southbound. We're hearing reports people are slowing down to look at the Volkswagen Transporter sales event. Apparently you can get £1,500 off any new Transporter. That's any variant, any trim, and any colour until the 31st of March. Now that's a deal worth queuing for. Search VW Transporter offers. UK retail customers 18 plus. Discount applies to price of all new Transporters ordered by 31st of March and delivered by 30th of June.
Iain Dale on LBC.
7:26. Let's go to Yashar in Barnet. Hello, Yashar.
Hi, Ian. A great fan. Thanks for taking my call. I would say people are saying it's not our war. It's Middle Eastern war. It's Iranian war. It's not our war, and they're worried about their life. And that's correct. That's right. Some people are calling, I'm not going to have an extra pint over the weekend, or they're worried about the fuel price. That's absolutely right. But it's our war. We Iranians are paying the price with our blood. But it'll be your war, everyone's war, in 5 years' time if this regime is not gone. If this regime is still in power, it's going to be everyone's war. Imagine many Iranian young generation in Iran are desperate to leave the country because they're not seeing anything. They're not seeing any hope. They're going to go where? Europe, UK, US, Australia, Canada. They're going to immigrate to those countries. And we Iranians are the best immigrants because we respect the new country. We immigrate easily, we integrate easily. But there is not going to be only that, because many immigration from the Middle East is going to happen because this regime is not going to stop. There is going to be instability in the regime, in the region, and there is going to be more immigration towards UK, Europe, US, and they're not going to respect Western values. We Iranians do. They don't. So it's going to be everyone's war.
Yasha, thank you very much indeed. I think that's interesting what Yasha said there. It's slightly similar to what Saeed in Watford said last night about 7:55 on the programme, where he was effectively saying, look, obviously everyone's concerned about the bombs that are being dropped on Iran. People are dying, but all of his family in Iran were telling him that they are willing to put up with that, with the prospect of the regime falling. And as you heard there from Yasha, what the consequences are if it doesn't. Let's go to Frank in Cheshunt. Hello, Frank.
I'd just like to contradict what Yasser just said. When is the regime going to fall in Israel? Because if Israel is not finished, we're still going to be fighting this war in the next 5 years. So, well,
Israel is a democracy, so the Israeli government could fall at the next Israeli election.
Sir. It is far from a democracy. A democracy doesn't bomb children to pieces.
Israel is a democracy.
Israel
is a democracy because it has elections every 3 years.
No, that's not a democracy. How was democracy?
Well, how would you define a democracy then?
Democracy was got by the barrel of a gun. No, don't tell me Israel is a democracy.
Well, I just did twice.
I come from a place where your soldiers shot 13 men dead. Right? No.
So you think Britain isn't a democracy either then?
No. Israel, the regime in Israel needs to be changed.
Educate yourself, mate.
No, you need to educate because you're a right-wing wanker.
Is that true? I think you've just foregone the opportunity to have any further say by that remark, which presumably my colleagues dumped so the rest of the country wouldn't have heard it. You see, that is the level of debate that some people like to have on this. Idiots who do not understand anything, and if you can't understand the meaning of the word democracy, don't give me a ring and try and tell me what it is, because most of us know exactly what democracy is. You can hate the Israeli government. You can hate Benjamin Netanyahu. I'm not a fan of Netanyahu. I'm not a fan of this Israeli government. But it is a government that has to be re-elected every 3 years. And my suspicion is that at the next Israeli election, which I think is later in this year, that they won't be re-elected. But I mean, dear, oh dear. Let's do better than that, shall we? Right, we are going to talk a little bit more about the oil prices in a moment and take more of your calls, hopefully better ones than the last one. It's 7:31 on LBC. News headlines with Amelia Cox.
The Defence Secretary says British forces based in Iraq shot down 2 Iranian drones overnight. The Foreign Office is withdrawing some staff from the country temporarily. The new Supreme Leader in Iran has warned they will continue blocking the Strait of Hormuz. The cost of a barrel of oil climbed above $100 overnight as a result of the war in the Middle East. And a security officer is in hospital after being hit by a car during an attack at a synagogue in Michigan. Police say the suspect is dead and there have been no other reported victims in West Bloomfield. LBC weather, wet and windy with heavy rain pushing southeast across England tonight. Clear spells in the early hours, lows of -1.
This is LBC.
My name is Beverly and this is my NHS story. I had to make regular journeys to my local CDC for blood tests because I had lymphoma. I think it really helps to know that you've got somewhere local. It was really a godsend.
The government is opening new community diagnostic centres, with many already available 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, so the NHS can be there for all of us when we need it. Find your closest one at gov.uk/NHS Fit for the Future, available England-wide.
Have you ever felt like your investment advisor is giving you an off-the-shelf retirement plan? That they just want to put you in a box? But who wants that? At Fisher Investments UK, we never put you in a box. We create a plan that's just right for you because it's only right for us if it's right for you. Fisher Investments UK. Retirement advice that's as individual as you are. Learn more at fisherinvestments.co.uk. Investing involves the risk of loss. Fisher Investments UK is regulated by the UK Financial Conduct Authority.
It's hard to concentrate when you're worried about your health. It can feel like there's a wall between you and the rest of the world. Like you can't be fully present.
Hello, AXA Health. How can I help?
At AXA Health Insurance, we build our teams with people who care. So when you need us, we're here to support you. For cover that cares, search AXA Health Insurance. Pre-existing conditions are not covered.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
7:33 on LBC. So what on earth is going on with the oil prices at the moment? Now, inevitably, if there's any conflict in the Middle East, you expect oil prices to go up, but they've been yo-yoing in a way that we've actually, I don't think, ever seen before to quite this extent. Well, Lauren Holtmeyer joins me, a senior Middle East energy editor at S&P Global, based in Dubai. I think that's the first time on the programme we've ever had two guests from Dubai on the same programme. Lauren, thank you very much for talking to us. Now, am I right in saying that this yo-yoing in the oil price, it sort of was, I think at the beginning of March, we started off around $70. It then went up to 120, then down to 90. Now it's back up over 100. This is unprecedented. Why?
It is a bit odd, and I should say thank you for having me. You know, when we started this a few months ago, there was a lot of talk of oversupply in the crude markets that was keeping prices relatively stable and pretty much what we call range bound. Now, anything that happens in the Strait, traders get jumpy. And what we saw when Iran started saying, you know, effectively we're closing the Strait of Hormuz, traffic started clearing out, the oil market's worst fears came true, and we saw oil skyrocket. Now, we are still seeing a lot of yo-yoing, as you mentioned there, and those price fluctuations, even within this incredibly volatile market, seem to be tied to statements out of the administration in the U.S. and out of Iran. So today, when Iran's new Supreme Leader, Mojtaba Khamenei, spoke for the first time and said that they would keep the Strait of Hormuz shut in his first public appearance, oil futures prices jumped back up about 8%, hitting right at that $100 mark. the strait has been effectively shut for over a week and the markets are already really feeling this. So that type of statement at this time is not allaying market concerns that this is going to end quickly.
Now, I gather that countries in some parts of Asia are telling people not to drive to work, not to take a lift because they rely so heavily on Middle Eastern oil. Now, we haven't had any of that kind of talk in Europe. Do you think that's what's coming down the road?
Oh, I can't say that for the UK, but yes, so it was some Reuters reporting actually that Thailand had asked civil servants to stay at home and take stairs because they are really feeling this crude supply crunch. China is having to cut refinery runs. Japan, a big buyer of Middle Eastern oil, is bringing back gasoline subsidies. Even refineries in California are feeling indirect impacts of this crisis. So this is truly a global experience in terms of who's feeling the effects of this. The Gulf states make a lot of jet fuel that goes to European markets, and we did get some data in today showing that imports into Europe have indeed fallen, and those markets are only going to get tighter the longer this conflict drags out. Now, countries like the UAE and Saudi Arabia, who have options to get their crude to market without using the Strait of Hormuz, they are doing so, and they are flexing every option they have. But ultimately, it's just not enough. And we've still got somewhere between 8 and 10 million barrels, maybe a bit more, trapped inside the Gulf right now, which is really, really squeezing markets.
And I suppose a nightmare scenario, and I'm just speculating here, but if the Iranians decided to bomb the Suez Canal and close the Suez Canal as it was closed because that ship got stuck a couple of years ago, I mean, that really would be a blow. That combined with the closing of the Strait of Hormuz, that would be a massive blow to the world economy, wouldn't it?
Yes, it would. Maybe we shouldn't will that into existence, but it is something that we are monitoring very closely. So on the other side of the strait, you have the Houthis, who are also an Iran-backed proxy, and they have, in the very recent past, disrupted traffic going through that part of the Red Sea and the Bab el-Mandeb Strait. And they have so far stayed out of this fight, but it is something that we are monitoring very closely because they have in the past, and they do act in accordance with Iran's wishes. And should they choose to get involved in this, it could be what you just said, a worst case scenario.
Thank you very much, Lauren. That's Lauren Holtmeyer from S&P Global in Dubai. Right, let's go back to your calls and texts. Let's read out this text from Samuel, who says, you are trying to engineer consent. No, I'm just giving my view. This war is not worth it because what is the goal? And how do you expect us to carry out whatever your stated goal is militarily? I'm making an assumption on what the goal might be, but eventually we'll quickly get to boots on the ground. The math does not work, says Samuel. Right, let's go to Jude in Modi in Israel. Hello, Jude.
Hi there, how are you?
Hi, good, thank you. What would you like to say?
Sorry, I actually just got an alert because there might be a siren in a few minutes. I live in Israel, and I just wanted to say how it's definitely a democracy here, and I'm really fed up of hearing people say it is not.
Well,
very frustrating.
I mean, a lot of people are texting in saying that I shouldn't have cut that caller off, or they're never going to listen to the programme again. Well, the reason I cut that caller off was because he used a word which is not allowed to go out on the radio, beginning with W and ending with R. You can work out what the word was. So if anyone thinks that I should seriously engage with somebody who's going to use that language on national radio, they've got another thing coming. And I stand by my comment that he was an idiot. So there you go. And somebody said, and here's Steve saying, I'm going to complain to Ofcom. Well, good luck with that, because Ofcom would have had a go at me if I hadn't cut him off and dumped that word. Anyway, Jude, now you just said that you've got an alert there that there might be the sirens going off.
I have a safe room in my apartment. I am very lucky. I don't have to run outside. I'm not, disabled in any way. I can very quickly and easily get to safety. It's a shame that I have to keep doing that on multiple times a day. But
are you living in fear?
No, because I trust, because unfortunately I have experience now of 2.5 years of living through a war where my government, however flawed they may be, have a military in place made up of my family and friends and other fellow country people who are protecting their citizens, whether they're Arab citizens, of which there are 2 million, or Israeli citizens, Muslim, Jew, whatever. We are being protected. So I feel protected. And regarding Israel being a democracy, it absolutely is a vibrant democracy. I have lived here for nearly 10 years and I have voted in 5 general elections, which is ridiculous in its own way. There are problems with the political system here. But it is a democracy under attack permanently for its very existence. And I will thank you for letting me on air to say this, because lots of people on your radio station will not allow this to be said by anyone with their own actual experience that doesn't fit the narrative that Israel is an evil regime. It is not. It is really not. And thank you for giving me the opportunity to say this.
Not at all. You're very welcome. I mean, look, I want to hear all sorts of different points of view on this programme. And I obviously, when I launched this hour, I did not expect everyone to ring in and say, oh, yes, I agree with you, Ian. But I do expect a certain level of debate, and that caller didn't live up to it, did he? Jude, thank you. Let's go to Anthony in Ashford. Hello, Anthony.
Oh, good evening, Ian. Yes. Well, it seems to me that this regime, thankfully, is dying on its feet. This so-called replacement leader hasn't yet appeared on camera. This rather staged, scripted appearance today by a female newsreader isn't very convincing, is it? One of the things about a snake, it takes a while to die, doesn't it? You decapitate it, but it still twitches. And obviously this thing...
I don't know. I've never killed a snake.
Neither have I, but I'm thinking of some creatures that sort of, still twitch away after sadly losing their heads.
Yeah.
And it seems to me, I'm thinking of the examples where dictatorship has sort of had a succession. And it's hard to think of one, perhaps Cuba. Once you've knocked out the kind of the Saddam or whoever, usually it sort of withers away. And I'm just hoping that's the case here and that something better comes along. I know it hasn't before in these instances, but this might be an exception.
Well, I think that is what I cling to, in that, look, I can't sit here and say I have any idea what's going to happen in 2 weeks' time, in 4 weeks' time, in 2 months' time. But there has to be a hope that what the Americans and the Israelis are doing does bring about a situation where Iran no longer poses a danger to anybody. I don't know what kind of regime might follow this one, if indeed it is deposed. I mean, it may not be. Again, I've got no idea, and I'm not saying that I would have necessarily advocated what the Americans and the Israelis have done so far. But the fact that they've done it, we are where we are. So surely the hope must be that what they're doing does bring about some kind of change for the Iranian people.
Well, I certainly hope so. They always say that hope is the last thing that dies when Pandora's box is opened. And the one thing this has also shown is that thing called courage. We used to show a lot of it, didn't we? Britain used to be well renowned for courage. It seems that courage has gone somewhat out of fashion at the moment for political reasons. But I'm hoping it does resurge in this country, courage. Whatever you think about Trump, what I always say is you may hate his guts, but you've got to admire his guts and what he's done there.
Up to a point, Lord Copper. Thank you very much. Let's go to Bob in Harrow. Hello, Bob.
Good evening, Ian. Thanks for having me on again. I think Keir Starmer raised an interesting point a few days ago about we cannot tolerate profiteering. And my question, really to yourself, sir, and to the audience is, how much profiteering and market manipulation is going on in the petrochemical sector in the London Stock Exchange? Because petroleum price has been static, the kerosene price has gone up by 15-20%, avgas and aviation fuel price hasn't risen as much. So I think there's a lot of market manipulation going on. And the second point that I want to ask is, what was the word that started in W and ended in R? Was it wonder? Was it war? Was it Weezer? Winder? Windy air?
Bob, you are a man of the world. I think we can all imagine it was. And do not say it, or I'll have to cut you off as well.
No, please don't cut me off. No, that's the last thing I want tonight. No, I don't want to be cut off by yourself, sir. But thank you for entertaining me tonight. Love the show. You're doing well, sir. You're on form.
Okay, thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.
That is a matter of opinion. It has to be said amongst the texters who, well, shall we say, it's fairly one-way traffic on the texts. Right, we'll come to more of your calls in a moment. He says with some degree of trepidation, it's 7:45.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast on LBC.
Having assured the nation, speaking in the House of Commons in September, that, and I quote, full due process, close quotes, was followed in the appointment of Lord Mandelson, Sir Keir Starmer would seem to be in a ticklish spot, because clearly it was not. Paymaster General, Minister for European Union Relations, Nick Thomas-Symonds, who joins me now.
The Prime Minister's taken responsibility and, most importantly, has apologised to Epstein's victims.
He apologises to the victims, yet he appointed someone to this high office who he knew retained close links with the most infamous paedophile on the planet. Don't give me this idea that the sympathies are there.
Nick Ferrari at breakfast. Back tomorrow morning from 7. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Go from someday to sunny days in Greece with package holidays from £329 per person. So stop dreaming of souvlaki, stop scrolling crystal clear beaches, search EasyJet Holidays and get your holiday in Greece sorted today. Get out there. Selected dates April to September, limited availability, ATOL protected, T's and C's apply.
When you're smiling. Banning Dental Group clinics with over 5,000 top-rated Google reviews. Keep on smiling.
BetMGM was born in Vegas. So just like the Cheltenham Festival, we know a thing or two about entertainment. Every ride, every race, every roar. This is Cheltenham Vegas style. Sign up to BetMGM now. Bet £10 and get £40 in free bets. That's right. Bet £10 and get £40 in free bets. Are you ready for the greatest show on turf? BetMGM. It's showtime. Minimum stake £10, new customers only. Wagering requirements and conditions apply. 18 plus. Please gamble responsibly.
Hi, I'm looking for a pair of jeans.
Right. Low slung, slouchy, wide leg, barrel leg, curved leg, flared, straight or skinny.
Blue?
Fashion. It's hard to keep on top of. Other things, like the upcoming changes to renting, are a bit easier. As a landlord, you will need to get on top of these important changes. They will affect how you manage your tenancies. Act now. Read the guidance at gov.uk/renting is changing.
Whether you still own it or not, if you had a diesel car built between 2009 and 2020, you could be entitled to compensation. Checking takes minutes at jointheclaim.com, and if successful, compensation could be worth thousands. Diesel emissions claims are still open for Ford, Nissan, Renault, Mercedes, BMW and Jaguar Land Rover. Don't miss out. Join millions of drivers across the UK. Check your vehicle now at jointheclaim.com.
Join the claim!
Iain Dale on LBC.
7:48 on LBC. Right, we are going to come back to your calls in a moment. But first, let's cross live to the United States, where a suspect armed with a rifle is dead after ramming a vehicle into a Michigan synagogue. Susan Dimas is there, executive editor of Lincoln Square in Michigan. Susan, thank you for coming on. Just bring us up to date with what exactly has happened.
Thank you. Yes. So one of the larger synagogues in Michigan in West Bloomfield near Detroit had a man who was attempting to come into the synagogue where there's also a preschool. He is down. Nobody else is hurt, but it was a huge scene with dozens of law enforcement on the scene.
And I mean, I was going to say what the motivation was. I suppose it's obvious what the motivation was, given that it's at a synagogue.
Law enforcement has not identified a motive, but what we do know is that there have been a series of attacks on synagogues in Michigan in recent years, rising anti-Semitic violence, and this could be part of that pattern.
Tell us about some of these other incidents. I mean, is this different from what's happening in other states in America? Is it a particular problem in Michigan?
Michigan is one of the places that the Anti-Defamation League has flagged for having a large number of anti-Semitic hate crimes. But certainly there are other states like New York that obviously have a big Jewish population and many Jewish institutions that they have many incidents. But back in 2024, a synagogue in East Lansing, Michigan, near the Capitol, there was just someone convicted of making threats to that synagogue. Back in 2019, there was a temple up in the Upper Peninsula, very low populated area, but neo-Nazis targeted that synagogue with vandalism. So this is sadly another incident, and the most potentially violent.
And just to reiterate, no serious casualties after this. Well, that's one bit of relief. Thank you very much indeed. That's Susan Dimas there from Lincoln Square in Michigan. Right, back to your calls on the war in Iran. Let's go to Dara, who is in Kilmore. Hello, Dara.
Good evening. I won't use any naughty words.
You're very kind.
But to be honest, you asked the Palestinians in the West Bank, is it a democracy? It certainly isn't to them. So there is that. I mean, what democracy has people under military law for over 70 years and doesn't give them equal rights? I mean, that's just historical fact, unfortunately. Regarding the war, sorry, go on.
I was just going to say, I'm not going to disagree with you on that particularly, because I mean, there have been all sorts of examples over the years of democracies who've done things which most of us who live in democracies would not approve of. I mean, being a democracy does not guarantee that the government of that democracy doesn't do bad things. I mean, Germany was a democracy in the 1930s, and look what happened there. So my point was not saying that, because Israel is a democracy, it doesn't do bad things. That was not what I was trying to say.
But to say it's the only democracy in the Middle East and make them out to be the holiest holy, it's simply not true. I mean, no one from the West Bank can move into Israel and can vote, even though they're under their laws. How is that a democracy? But we're diverting from the very serious, for all of us. And it terrifies me what's going on right now, because people are living in cloud cuckoo land if they think the Iranians are on their knees and the regime is going to get ousted. That's further from the truth. There was a closer chance maybe a few weeks ago, but now the fact that they've killed so many kids, they've poisoned a city of 10 million people by attacking the oil infrastructure. They were the first to attack the water sanitation centres, which then Iran applied in kind. At the moment, they're the ones holding all the cards. The Americans, you got Donald Trump talking the most absolute bilge, saying we're winning. They're not. 40 years of trillions being spent on military bases in the Gulf are now destroyed, inoperable. They can't be used. To get that replaced will take decades. They now have to take parts from and defense systems from South Korea. They're having kittens over it. North Korea's looking down, going, laughing their heads off. The Koreans and the Japanese aren't happy, because they're realizing now that to be an ally of America, you were really only a tier 2 ally. They'll take away your defenses to protect another country which started an illegal war that committed a genocide, and the world just stood back and watched and did nothing. No sanctions, no nothing. They massacred and killed hundreds of football players, but yet they get to play in UEFA competitions. What type of world are we living in to let these type of things happen? Now, I am not saying for 1 second I'm supporting the Iranian regime whatsoever. But the thing is, it's like the kettle calling the pot black. They started it. The Iranians warned them after the 12-day war, if you attack us again, the gloves are off. And this is exactly what's happening.
Hang on a second. You say they didn't start it. They have been attacking Israel. They want the Israeli state to not exist. They've been funding terror organizations throughout the Middle East. They've been carrying out or attempting to carry out terror attacks in this country, 20 that have been foiled by MI5. I could go on. You sort of saying that the Americans and the Israelis are the bad guys in this. Well, Iran has been operating in this way for many, many years. and therefore has to, at some point, surely be held to account for its actions.
Right. There's another stuff that's happened in the media when they're going about the worldwide terror. Iranians, you had David Mencer on the show, not your show, it was one of the other presenters, and he was saying that blatant lies, saying that they fund 100% of world terrorism. And the people have mentioned Manchester.
Well, it's obviously not 100%, but it's a lot.
May I finish, please? This is a very important fact, that you go to Milan, London, Manchester, Paris. None of those were from Iran. They were Wahhabi terrorists. ISIS is a Wahhabi terrorist. It was Iran who stopped ISIS from taking over Iraq. That's a historical fact. It wasn't for them, Iran would be an ISIS country like now. I mean, you look at Syria. The leader now was ex-ISIS. Did have a 10 million bounty on his head, but he's our guy now because he's.
But all you're indulging in throughout this conversation is whatabouteries. I'm not pretending that there aren't other terrorists in the world. Of course there are, but you can't sit there and deny that Iran's been at the centre of a huge amount of attacks on other countries and terror attacks. That is a fact as well. Okay, then let's look at it. Which country has contributed to 38 million people being killed since 1971. Well, again, you're going on about you're doing another whataboutery, Dara. I'm not interested. I'm not interested in your whataboutery. It's not whataboutery. It's facts. The thing is, people have to look at the bigger picture. I mean, they say Iran have done these attacks. I mean, what attacks have they done in Europe? Well, I've just told you that MI5 have foiled 20 different attacks in this country over the last few years. And yeah, I suppose you're going to say, well, I don't believe it. They should have all the proof and evidence to show us. Here we go, yeah, because we're the evil ones, aren't we? It's not whataboutery. It shows the evidence. If they have done it, shouldn't the public have the right to see who the person was, what the links are, so that the public will know, yeah, Iran's done this. They should do this, but they haven't. Why is that? Well, possibly because it might jeopardise future operations if they did. That's baloney. No, it's not baloney. Why would it be baloney? Surely the security services are there to protect our interests as people of the United Kingdom, and therefore, if they judge that something is going to sort of damage national security, obviously they're not going to give us chapter and verse. But you said for 10 years. So you're I said a few years. But how long? A few years. I don't know what the time period was. How long is a few years? Well, okay, it doesn't really matter. The fact is they foiled 20 attacks, and you don't seem to think that's important. It is important, and the facts are more important. Remember, lies start wars, truth ends them. And the fact that they're not giving the evidence out is very suspicious. I mean, all you have to do is look at the history in Ireland and the shenanigans they were going on in there. And they were finally getting released in the Secrets Act. You know, after so many months of time, you can actually access the truth. But some of it was that damning. They've actually. Well, of course, it was all the British government's fault. Nothing to do with the disgusting IRA, was it? I never said that. Well, you intimated it. No, I didn't intimate it. I'm just giving facts. Well, actually, no, you're not giving us facts, though. You're giving us your opinions, and that's absolutely fine. But they're not facts. Well, no, it was 40 years of an apartheid state, quite happily to happen in the 6 counties. That's what happened. They let people first of all, it is not and was not an apartheid state, and the abuse of that word nowadays, I think, diminishes what went on in South Africa. So anyway, we're at the end of the hour, Dara, so we're not going to continue with this, but thank you for your opinions, but not your facts in inverted commas. Cross Question follows in a minute. We will be joined by Danny Beales, the Labour MP, Dame Theresa Villiers, former Conservative Minister, Peter Tatchell, Human Rights campaigner, and Connie Shaw from the Free Speech Union. They will be here to answer your questions. 0345 6060 973 is the number to call. And of course, you can watch us on Global Player, on the LBC app, and the LBC YouTube channel.
on your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 8 o'clock, the Defence Secretary says he's considering options to help defend shipping in the Strait of Hormuz. Iran's new Supreme Leader has promised to continue to block the key shipping route in his first address to the country on state television. In a written statement, Mojtaba Khamenei also said he would avenge the deaths of Iranian martyrs. John Healey says British forces will be ready to evacuate UK nationals if the US and Israeli war with Iran worsens.
When we saw the nature of the Iranian retaliation against many countries that just had no involvement in the conflict, and it's my job to make sure that we can protect our British personnel, our British citizens in the region, but also that we work as we have done to help defend our allies there too.
Mr. Healey also warned that Vladimir Putin's hidden hands may be having an influence on Iran's tactics in the Middle East. A 60-year-old British man has reportedly been arrested in Dubai for posting about missile strikes during the war. The campaign group detained in Dubai says he and 20 others have been charged under cybercrime laws. Authorities there put out a warning last week about posts that could incite panic. A man armed with a rifle has rammed a truck into a synagogue in Michigan in the United States. The suspect was shot on site security at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield. The facility houses a school and preschool, but it's believed all of the children are safe. Rabbi Aaron Starr is the leader of a congregation 20 minutes away from where the incident took place. He says tension amongst the Jewish community is already high.
Hatred against the Jews, vandalism and violence has been on the rise dramatically, certainly since October 7th. But the truth is it was on the rise well before that as well.
A woman's been jailed for 13 years for forcing a girl to work as a house slave for a quarter of a century. 56-year-old Amanda Wixon from Tewkesbury violently abused her victim at her home. LBC's Thea Rickard confronted her outside court when she was found guilty last month.
I never done it.
How could you lock someone up for 25 years?
I never.
Are you a monster, Amanda?
Say what you think.
So you're saying this whole jury's got it wrong?
Yeah.
The remains of an historic building in Glasgow that was gutted by fire will be demolished. Glasgow City Council says the Victorian building has to be knocked down in the interests of public safety. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 48 points at 10,305. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.15. LBC weather. Wet and windy with heavy rain pushing southeast across England tonight. Clear spells in the early hours, lows of -1. Breezy tomorrow with some sunny spells. Blustery showers moving in from the west, highs of 10 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daisy Steele.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation. Cross Question with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's Thursday evening. Welcome to Thursday's Cross Question. It's 3 minutes past 8. On the panel with me tonight, to my left, Connie Shaw from the Free Speech Union. To her left, Peter Tatchell, Human Rights Campaigner and Director of the Peter Tatchell Foundation. To my right, Dame Theresa Villas, former Conservative MP and Cabinet Minister. And to her right, Danny Beales, Labour MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip. They're here to answer your calls, 0345 6060 973. You can WhatsApp on that number. You can text 84850, and you can watch us on Global Player, the LBC app, and the LBC YouTube channel.
Call 0345 6060 973. Text 84850. Cross Question. Watch live on both Global Player and the new LBC app. This is LBC.
Let's go to our first question. It's from Kim, who says, can the war in Iran possibly be justified given A, Trump said he'd already destroyed their nuclear capabilities last year, and B, he's also clearly given up on regime change? Danny Beales.
Well, yeah, I heard some of your comments earlier, Ian, and you kind of making not the case, but making the kind of the defence's case, I suppose.
This hour's not about me, it's about you.
About the kind of awful nature of the Iranian regime. And I think certainly many people would agree with the sentiments that you shared earlier. And I've got a number of Iranian constituents who share those sorts of thoughts. 30,000 people butchered on the streets of Iran in recent months. No right-minded person can justify that or think that's acceptable. I think the question about this action now is will it resolve that situation with the Iranian regime? Will it lead to regime change? Was there a plan? And as Kim's mentioned, if the plan is to remove nuclear capabilities, well, we were told, the strikes previously from the US did that. I think, Trump celebrated job done. So I think there are significant questions. And I think the Prime Minister, in his assessment of the military action, was right to not join Israel and America in those strikes. I understand the sentiments that you and some of your listeners will have about the regime. I share them too, but I don't think this will bring about regime change. I don't think that's clear. And what is clear is this is leading to growing global instability, arguably enabling the war in Ukraine, the legal war in Ukraine of Russia. It's potentially putting more petrol dollars in or rubles in Putin's pocket. So for me, it doesn't seem on any metric, on any measure, to be leading to a positive outcome.
Whether you agree with the action in the first place, and I think there is a debate to be had about that, given we are where we are now, is it not in the interests of, well, certainly the Iranian people, and I would say the sort of wider Middle East, for the Americans and Israelis to finish the job, whatever that means?
But I think that's the question, is what is the job? I don't think anyone really knows. I don't think, from what we've heard, the American administration knows. It seems to change. It seems to vary depending on what we're hearing day to day. I think very recently, yesterday or the day before, we were getting indications from the US that it might be job done already in their view. But on the situation goes, and I think rather than progress being made in any metric, we're seeing regression. We're seeing, since the regime just regenerates itself, the son of the Ayatollah now being the leader of Iran, and in all measures just as bad, if not worse, than his father. There's no kind of end in sight for the Iranian Revolutionary Guard, who I've stood up in Parliament and called to be sanctioned previously to the war. And we're seeing, global instability, other Gulf states being drawn into this, and the impacts on UK citizens and global consumers around the world. So for me, it seems like a lot of pain, a lot of death and destruction, but I'm not exactly sure what the gain is at this stage.
Teresa.
I mean, it is a terrible situation from every perspective, but we just can't let the most dangerous regime in the world get the most dangerous weapon in the world.
But what about the point that we were told last year that the bombing then had stopped the nuclear program in its tracks?
Well, I think that wasn't correct at the time. I think there were certainly voices that said that the nuclear capacity had been significantly degraded, but I don't think there was consensus that it had been destroyed. I mean, I totally understand. I mean, history unfortunately teaches us that the West getting involved in wars in the Middle East can lead to disastrous unintended consequences. But I think it is understandable why Israel and the US have taken this action. Iran is a state that's committed to the complete destruction of Israel. If it is allowed to develop a nuclear weapon, then it will have the means to carry out that threat and kill every man, woman and child in the state of Israel.
But what is the end game goal here? Because you've got various different voices within the American administration saying different things, where Donald Trump seemed to say at the beginning, well, it was about regime change. He didn't actually use the phrase, but that was effectively what he was saying. And then Marco Rubio, the Secretary of State, says, yeah, well, we only did it because we knew that the Israelis were about to do it, so we thought we might as well go in with them. I mean, it's not a very...
There's no intelligence
you're absolutely right.
About nuclear capabilities. That doesn't seem, in anything I've seen, it seems, from what we've seen in the media, it seems to be much more about the location of the Ayatollah and that information potentially being known by the Israeli Secret Service. That may have led to this occasion of the war beginning, rather than suddenly some intelligence about nuclear capabilities. I mean, I may be wrong. I'm not getting secret briefings. That's above the pay grade of a backbench Labour MP. But nothing that I've seen in the media or said from the American administration seems to suggest there was an active and immediate change.
I mean, you're both right. There are completely conflicting signals coming out of the US administration, and that compounds the risk of their involvement in this war. But it does seem very clear that they're massively degrading Iran's ability to do harm, whether it's missiles or it's drones or it's their navy or it's their army. That must be the core goal of this war, to reduce the ability of the Iranian regime to harm the region and the rest of the world. We know from report, for example, from the Intelligence and Security Committee, that they target people on the streets of this city, Iranian dissidents in particular. They're allied with criminal groups and proxies around the world to carry out terrorist attacks. So both we and the United States, and in particular Israel, are at risk as a result of the lethality of the Iranian regime, and that is what is being degraded out through this conflict.
Peter Tatchell.
Well, I speak as someone who was involved in the campaign against the dictatorship of the Shah, which that dictatorship was backed by the United States and Britain, but also someone who's been part of campaigns against the Islamic regime since 1979. I've got no brief for Iran whatsoever, but as we've heard, this military operation has no clear plan. There wasn't even a plan in place to protect the Straits of Hormuz, through which the world's oil and gas supplies come. That's madness. It's irresponsible. If you look at what's happening right now, the ABC of a military operation has not been followed. One of the ABCs is that you knock out the regime's state media and television to prevent their communication. You target, cyber attack the police, the military, the Revolutionary Guards, the militia. None of that has been done. And of course, Donald Trump promised back in January, when protesters were being massacred, that he would come to their rescue. He didn't then, and he's not now. He's allowing the state media to put out their propaganda every day. He's allowing the lines of communication, which could be cyber attacked and destroyed, between the repressive apparatus of police, military, judiciary, government.
Why do you think that is?
Because I don't think really Trump has any genuine concern about the people of Iran. For him, it's a macho war posturing. He wants to go down. He wanted to go down as a great war leader. I think he's probably going to go down as a great war criminal.
Well, he said that he wanted to go down as a great peace leader, and that he solved eight wars in his first 18 months as president.
And that was all nonsense. Look
some of it wasn't, though. Some of it wasn't.
What's still happening in the Congo and Sudan. Tens of thousands, hundreds of thousands of people displaced as refugees, tens of thousands massacred. In Congo and Sudan, the mass rape of women and girls. Clearly, Trump did not solve those conflicts, and it's shameful that he tries to pretend he did.
Connie.
Well, the original question is whether the war could still be justified if we know that Iran doesn't necessarily have the nuclear weapons, or that they were destroyed back last year. I think this war can absolutely be justified. I think something that most people don't understand, and most concerningly that our own government don't understand, is that Iran is like no other country on the planet in terms of their eschatological ideology, that they say it in black and white terms. They wish to destroy Israel, destroy America, destroy the West in general. Even if their nuclear capabilities at the time last year were destroyed, until the IRGC and the regime is completely wiped out, Iran will always see it as not just their political but their religious obligation to bring about the end of time, to create Iran as the perfect place for Muslims and wait for the coming of the 12th Imam. It's an ideology that the West simply doesn't understand, because we don't understand Islamism. And when people talk about, oh, this is a sovereign country, and they don't really mean it, it's all of this West-splaining. It's really difficult, it seems, for people in the West to understand how insane this ideology is. And until the Islamic regime is completely wiped out, we won't see peace in the Middle East. I think the fall of the regime will be as significant as the fall of the Soviet Union was.
I mean, Peter, that's an interesting point, isn't it? Because, look, you run a human rights organisation, and I think you'd probably agree that human rights in Iran are probably among the worst in the world. I mean, we're not drawing up a league table, but we know what they do to gay people. We know about the restriction on women's rights, etc., etc. I've had countless Iranian people living in Britain ring this programme over the last 2 weeks saying, thank God for Donald Trump, thank God for Israel, because we now have a chance, or our family back in Iran, they have a chance of freedom. Now, none of us around this table can say what will happen when the bombing stops. But, I mean, there is a chance that something better, I'm not saying a democracy, but something better might follow. Isn't that a chance worth taking?
Well, that's a maybe. And as you know, there are many Iranians who oppose the regime but do not think this is the way to do it.
I haven't heard from a single one.
No, there was an open letter by 100 of Iran's most prestigious political dissidents, cultural figures and others, saying this was not the way to go. They want help, but not by the bombing of their country. And the fear is that if this bombing continues, it will bolster the regime, because the regime is using nationalism and self-defense to win kudos. And that's a real serious danger. But I agree with you, we can't do nothing, but the history of attempted regime change is so appallingly bad. It has gone from bad to worse.
But Iranians say, look, you can't compare what happened in Iraq with Iran. We're two very, very different countries. The culture in Iran, the history of Iran is so different that it's very lazy thinking to say because it didn't happen in Libya or Iraq that it can't happen here.
Well, you're right. There are differences, but the fundamental principle is that successful regime change only comes from within when the people themselves make that change. Now, the people in Iran have their hands and feet tied. They are struggling. But I just wish back in January, when those mass protests took place, that Donald Trump, instead of blah, 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 he actually acted. He actually should have used cyber attacks to knock out state TV and radio, to knock out the communication systems of the Revolutionary Guards, the police, the military, the judiciary, and the government. Then that lack of communication
absolutely valid
would have paralysed the regime.
And I never thought I would hear you as an advocate of military strategy.
No, cyber attack.
Yeah,
cyber
I know, but that is warfare, isn't it? That is modern warfare. Yeah. So, no, I rather agree with you. Right, we will move on in just a few moments' time. It's 8:16.
This is LBC.
Wrong tool for the job? Don't make that mistake with your van. Get up to 30% off selected new Toyota vans and pickups with a warranty up to 10 years or 100,000 miles with every qualifying routine service. Visit your nearest Toyota centre or visit toyota.co.uk/van savings for more details. Savings on selected vans and pickups ordered by the 31st of March 2026. UK residents. See toyota.co.uk for full details. T's and C's apply.
Nobody knows Vegas like BetMGM. And we know just how loud it can get. So sometimes it's important to turn it down or take a break. Because a little pause keeps the fun in play. To find out more about BetMGM's safer gambling tools and how we can support you to keep your play safe, visit the safer gambling area of our app or website. BetMGM. 18 plus, please gamble responsibly.
It took me less than 30 seconds to request my repeat prescription on the NHS app.
That's quicker than making this brew.
And I saved time by not ringing the GP practice.
Win.
Plus, with notifications turned on, I know as soon as I get a new message.
Big win.
So there's more time for this tea break.
So did you go to that restaurant? We're delivering an NHS fit for the future. Request repeat prescriptions and turn on notifications to never miss a message. Tap the NHS app.
Cross Question with Iain Dale. Watch live on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
18 minutes past 8 on LBC. Right, on our panel tonight, if you've just tuned in, Dame Theresa Villas, former Conservative MP and Cabinet Minister, Human Rights campaigner Peter Tatchell, Labour MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip Danny Beales, and Connie Shaw from the Free Speech Union. Robert has sent in a text question. If the price of fuel surges due to this war, I think that's a bit later, it already has, is Keir Starmer protected from any political damage? Peter?
Well, of course, Keir Starmer isn't responsible for that increase, but he is responsible for how he handles it. So the proposed hike to the fuel price levy later in the year, that must now surely be under question mark, because we are living through an escalating cost of living crisis, not yet out of the last one, but we're now a new intensified cost of living crisis, and people are fed up. People are really, really angry that there are billionaires whose wealth has increased by 25% in the last 2 years, while ordinary people are struggling to put food on the table. So the Prime Minister really has to find a solution. We cannot allow ordinary people to be yet again penalised for the consequences of an economic crisis. There has to be fairness. There has to be a decision by the government to protect people from what are likely to be very substantial energy hikes, albeit in the summer when it's less of an issue with home heating, but still people are struggling, and we live in a very unfair society with a huge gap between rich and poor. There's 170 odd billionaires in Britain. Most of them are paying negligible tax through various tax avoidance schemes. That's just not fair while ordinary people are having to pay their fair share of tax. The government has to crack down, and the government has to introduce a wealth tax of 1 or 2% on people with assets more than £10 million. That would fund a cushioning to protect people from this cost of living crisis.
Teresa.
It may be that we're suffering from an external economic shock which is contributing to this price rise, but I think the government will be held responsible. They will be impacted by this in a very significantly negative way, partly for the reasons Peter talks about, that there is already concern about the cost of living, but also there's this recognition our economy was in a weak state before this external shock happened, and now all the numbers are going in the wrong direction. We've got inflation heading up, we've got mortgage rates heading up, we've got economic growth very slow, and much of this is down to the choices made by Keir Starmer and Rachel Reeves to, for example, raise national insurance on employing people. That is contributing to unemployment. Their decisions on the youth rate of the national living wage is contributing to youth unemployment of over 10%.
But on this issue in particular, on price increases, because, Peter and I will remember the oil crisis of the 1970s. Though I don't think there was any suggestion then that the government had to sort of rush to people's help. And yet we've got used to it now because of COVID and the energy cap that Liz Truss brought in. We now expect the government to come to people's aid, don't we, in a way that we didn't before?
Well, what they can do is cancel the fuel duty increase. They're already, with prices going up, they're already going to get raised income from petrol taxes anyway. They shouldn't compound a problem which is partly caused by the conflict in Iran. They should cancel that increase immediately.
Danny, do you think that should be announced immediately?
Well, it's not an immediate increase. And I think there's kind of rank hypocrisy from the Conservatives and Reform, if I may, as well, both of whom championed this conflict, criticised the Prime Minister for not throwing everything behind the conflict and escalating it, putting British men and women on the front line immediately behind this war, which they seem to now be doing an about turn on very quickly.
Well, Nigel Farage certainly has.
As it's playing out. And we're all seeing the impacts of the war on our global oil costs, which we're seeing at the petrol pump. People are worrying about what that means in the long term on fuel bills and the cost of living and food. And now the Conservatives are saying, oh, hang on a minute, why isn't Keir Starmer doing something? Well, this is, as Peter said, an international conflict affecting all countries through international markets. There isn't increases on energy bills now. They're capped for 3 months. And actually, next month, they come down by £117 because of the government's action in the recent budget. So the idea that the government are contributing to that crisis is simply incorrect. And actually, it's alleviating fuel bills next month. And fuel duties froze until September. So the increases we're seeing at the fuel pumps are related to the international prices, not anything to do with tax and the government's action.
No, that is true.
I think standing at a fuel pump that Nigel Farage has done in recent days and claiming suddenly that the government's taking some sort of decision it hasn't is deeply unfair and actually contradicts what Reform and the Tories have been championing in the last month. But is the government? Will the government be held responsible? Should the government act? I would agree. Governments are held responsible for the situation their citizens find themselves in, and rightly so. Governments, can't control the world, but they can control certain things in their country. And I think if people are struggling in whatever walk of life, I do think the government has a duty to try and help. And so, you can't write a budget now for September. We don't know where we'll be in September with this conflict, with global prices, whether they'll be higher or lower. I think all things certainly need to be considered.
But you sound to me as if Rachel Reeves was sitting next to you now, you'd be saying, "Come on, Rachel, you need to announce this sooner rather than later."
No, I think because September is a long It's my birthday, actually. It's a long time away, a very long time away. I'm not 38, it's for a very long time. But the idea that you set a budget now in September about prices in September, that you don't know what those prices are going to be. If this conflict does finish, if Trump's job done that he said yesterday, if that continues and
that's
ceases,
a fair point, isn't it, Theresa?
Then prices will stabilise again.
I mean, for all we know, oil prices might have come down to below what they were a few weeks ago by September. So you can't. Why should they commit to doing that now?
They need to be decisive. They need to do what they can to help with the cost of living crisis that is going to be intensified as a result of what is happening in the Middle East. And a fuel duty increase in September would be remarkably damaging. But I think it is worth remembering, and I hopefully I can unite the entire panel on this. One thing this situation does remind us is that the switch to renewable energy is just so important, because it does mean that we are less vulnerable to these shocks and less vulnerable to wars in the Middle East and petrostates. So, unfortunately, that's obviously a longer-term ambition, but it was something that the Conservatives pursued very successfully in government, heading up to nearly 50% of renewable energy as part of our electricity generation.
No nuclear power plants during 14 years. Actually banned.
How many were built in the Blair and Brown government?
Not enough, but this government has taken significant steps to increase on and offshore wind, solar power. I must say,
we inherited 6% renewable energy from Labour, and we left office when it was nearly 40%.
I know you're not currently in Parliament, but were you, and had you heard your leader and your energy spokesperson, you would have not heard what you've just said, which I actually agree with. I agree with you. We need to transition rapidly away from fossil fuels. But that's not your party's position, and actually they're criticising the government for
the long-term goal has got to, or even the short-term goal has got to be to fast-track renewables to insulate us from these international shocks, but also to put pressure on Donald Trump to protect and open the Straits of Hormuz. Because if those tankers can go through, we'll get the oil and gas and the prices won't go up. And the incredible thing is, why isn't Trump doing that? Why is he allowing Iran to be able to hold those tankers to hostage in the Straits of Hormuz?
And they're laying mines
he has the capacity to stop Iran from firing those missiles and protecting the Strait of Hormuz. Donald Trump hasn't. Why?
Connie?
Well, in terms of whether Starmer will be protected politically, because of the fact that he didn't want to get involved with Iran, so he can shrug this off and say, well, I didn't get involved, and look, this is what happened because of this war. So in terms of the blame being on Starmer, he'll be able to, I imagine, say, well, I had nothing to do with it, and that, I suppose...
But everyone blames the government for everything.
Oh, yeah, they will. But at least if the fact that he's been so stood back from this war and not even offered verbal support for the Americans in Israel, he can say... It's not, I knew this was going to happen. We all knew it was going to happen, of course. Even people who wanted to go into this war, of course this is going to happen. For me, the idea that we would be getting rid of a terrorist regime that makes the world such a dangerous place. I appreciate everyone's daily lives are far more difficult when our oil prices go up, but this is an existential matter. I think this is an existential problem. I would rather see the end of a regime and have higher oil prices for a bit than be under constant threat from the Iranian regime. But in the meantime,
respectfully, that's not the question.
No, I know it's not. But I did
the end of the regime. But the idea of let's hope. That's not a strategy, is it?
Well, the point is that even if Starmer, the fact that Starmer didn't want to go into the war means that he can shrug this off, and that's fine. I'm just saying that, and Iain said that a government is going to be blamed for anything and everything, which of course is the case. But he didn't want to go into it.
Your proposition that somehow it's worth it because of the end of the regime. I think that's the fundamental point is we don't know if this will lead to the regime.
No, we don't.
But let's say it does. I know it's hypothesising, but let's say it does. And that the regime falls, the Iranians, when the bombing stops, the Iranians come out on the street, the regime is toppled, and something much more moderate takes its place. May not be a democracy, but something that where Iran would be...
They're awful for many of the reasons you've said, Connie, and Peter's touched upon. But that isn't the situation. That is deeply hypothetical.
But it might be.
That's not... Well, anything might be the case.
What would the solution be then? Just to not do anything, just in case it doesn't happen?
It's one of the most significant decisions any Prime Minister could take. I fortunately don't have to make that decision. Whether you
one day, Danny, one day.
No, never. Whether you send British men and women to fight...
We haven't. And I don't agree that we should have gone. We don't have the capability. We'd be on two fronts. I just think the Prime Minister should have at least given verbal support and thanks
are defending Cyprus and British interests in the Middle East and are flying planes and are actually at risk. But whether we actively were involved in the war was a question that was put to the Prime Minister, and he had to make that decision. And I think you can't make those decisions based on hypothetical future scenarios or wishes or hopes or dreams.
That's what every war is started on, surely.
No, they shouldn't be. They should be based on strategy, on what is the goal, what is the strategy to get the goal, what is the exit strategy, weighing up the risks, the sort of mitigations to all the things we know have now happened that Peter mentioned around the Strait of Hormuz, the impact on oil supplies, what you do domestically to manage those. None of that planning was in place. So clearly it's deeply inappropriate.
For once in my life, I'm going to go to the news headlines on time on Cross Question, because it is 8:30. Let's get the headlines from Daisy Steele.
The Defence Secretary says British forces based in Iraq shot down 2 Iranian drones overnight. The Foreign Office is withdrawing some staff from the country temporarily. The new Supreme Leader in Iran has warned they will continue blocking the Strait of Hormuz. The cost of a barrel of oil climbed above $100 a barrel overnight as a result of the war in the Middle East. A gunman has been shot dead after he rammed his truck into a synagogue in Michigan. A security guard was injured in a gunfight with the suspect at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield, but it's believed no one else was hurt in the incident. LBC weather, wet and windy with heavy rain pushing southeast across England tonight. Clear spells in the early hours, lows of -1.
This is LBC.
It's hard to concentrate when you can't shake a health worry. It can feel like there's a wall between you and the rest of the world. Like you can't be fully present.
Hello, AXA Health. How can I help?
If something's playing on your mind, AXA Health support line nurses and counsellors are ready to listen day or night. For cover that cares, search AXA Health Insurance. 24/7 health support line available to all members. Treatment for pre-existing conditions is not covered.
1983 election, she's won a landslide second term.
Police have been deployed to disperse crowds as the poll tax riots escalate.
Credit crunch is continuing to spread from the USA.
Britain has left the European Union. I mean, the list goes on. Boris, Liz,
We've
Rishi.
helped Britain invest through 45 years of change. That's why we're the UK's #1 investment and savings platform, trusted by 2 million people. Hargreaves Lansdown, helping Britain invest for it all. Investment returns vary. For claim verification, visit hl.co.uk.
A message from TfL.
I saw him in the local news a few days after. His name's Rakesh. They had to put him into a coma just because I didn't look again at that turning. He had 2 kids. How did I not see his bike ahead of me? Well, I didn't look again. He didn't make it.
Drivers, take another look, not a life. To the Mayor of London and TfL, every journey matters.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
It's 8:32 on LBC. Let me reintroduce my panel to you. We have Dame Theresa Villas with us, former Conservative MP and Cabinet Minister, Peter Tatchell, Human Rights campaigner, Danny Beales, Labour MP for Uxbridge and South Ruislip, and Connie Shaw from the Free Speech Union. Right, a text question here from Mark in Stevenage. Does the panel agree with me that if we're a country that values free speech, this weekend's Al-Quds March should not have been banned? Well, the Metropolitan Police Commissioner, Sir Mark Rowley, wrote today that the march presented a real risk of serious violence and disorder of a kind that could not be safely mitigated. But I understand that there is going to be a static protest. I'm not quite sure why that's considered any safer, but there we go. Champion of free speech, Connie Shaw.
Well, obviously, I haven't seen the evidence from the police about the violence, but if that is the case, then in this case, I would personally be in favour of the march being banned. That being said, in any other situation, absolutely not. You know, I despise the fact that there'd be people marching in favour of the Iranian regime, but there we go. And it's a very difficult question.
Your own position?
Yes, it's my position
of the Free Speech Union?
It's my position. I'm not sure what stance the FSU would take on this march.
You're not sure what stance they would take? Surely that's integral to your existence.
It is, but because of how fast these things move, I wouldn't want to say something that I'm not sure the FSU would agree with. It's my personal view that in this situation, if the police thinks that there's a threat of violence, we often go by the view that, well, it is our view that all speech should be allowed unless it is likely and intended to cause imminent lawless action, which is how the First Amendment is measured. I haven't seen the evidence. If that's what the police are saying, then of course I don't want to see people violence in the street, particularly at a time like this. Any other time, fine. I'm happy with the so-called hate marches that go. I think they're very unpleasant, but I'm all in favour of those people's right to free speech. Every Saturday. But I think in this case, if the think about how the marches have been going on for the last 2 years, where there were really quite arguably things being said on those marches that were intended and arguably likely to cause imminent violence. The police allowed those to go on for 2 years. The fact that the police have banned this one suggests to me that there was credible evidence that there could have been violence. In any other situation, of course, I don't think we should be banning any marches or protests.
I hope you don't mind me saying that I think it's extraordinary that we're now nearly 48 hours since this decision to ban the march was taken, and you don't know what the position of your own organisation is.
I appreciate that, yeah.
Peter Tatchell.
This march is organised by the so-called Islamic Human Rights Commission. It's got nothing to do with human rights at all. It is a pro-Sharia law organisation, and under Sharia law, they don't believe in democracy. They don't believe in human rights for women, LGBTs, or anyone. They support the Iranian dictatorship. They are a very, very vile organisation. But I have been on several of their marches, not to support them, but to oppose them, oppose their support for the Iranian.
How does going on their own marches oppose them?
Well, I've been carrying placards condemning the Iranian regime, condemning the persecution of women and LGBTs under Islamic states. There's never been any violence. They've been entirely peaceful. So as much as I object to this organisation, given their history of peaceful marches, I'm against them being banned. Free speech and the right to protest exists even for people with whom I disagree. So I've defended many organisations that I totally oppose. But in a free society, if they're peaceful and orderly, they have a right to express their point of view. And of course, people have a right, like I did, to counter-protest against them. And I've got to say that on those marches, I was threatened, I was shoved, I felt very unsafe, but I put myself in that position because I believed someone had to expose what they were standing for. That they weren't not standing for human rights, they were against human rights.
Does the fact that this military action is being taken now, it obviously heightens things? And I think there was going to be some sort of counter-march. And I mean, I've read the letter from Sir Mark Rowley to the Home Secretary where he asked her to ban the march. And I mean, it did seem from what he was saying that they had got intelligence that this could really kick off.
Well, the usual plan for the Metropolitan Police is to keep separate marches separate, to keep them distant. So I don't think that would have been a problem. But it is the responsibility of the police, as Mark Rowley, who I know personally, has said many times, the responsibility of the police is to protect people's right to protest. And the diminution of that right, restriction of that right, should only be in extreme circumstances. Okay. Now, there are no extreme circumstances in this case that I can see based on past experience.
Teresa?
I support the police and the Home Secretary on this. Of course, it is absolutely right that we have tough protections for free speech in this country, but there are always instances where free speech has to be qualified or constrained, where other important factors are at play. And I know that Sir Mark Rowley takes his duties to preserve the right to protest very seriously. I've had many discussions with him over the years over marches that I don't like. And he is adamant that the situation where the police is allowed to ban a march is very limited. It's a high bar to get over. So I am absolutely confident he would not have made the application that he did to the Home Secretary without some very serious evidence that there was going to be serious public disorder if this march went ahead. So I think it's always a balancing exercise when one is talking about these important rights such as freedom of speech. But in this instance, I think the Home Secretary has got it right and a ban is justified.
Danny?
Yeah, I mean, I would concur with that point. I think we have to relentlessly focus on protecting our rights, our right of free speech, the right to live in a democracy and all that it encompasses. This is not stopping people's right to demonstrate. They are going to have a static protest to be able to say what their views are. It sounds like most of us would disagree with those views on these panels, but they have a right to say them, even though we might disagree. But as I understand...
But what's the difference between I know what the obvious difference is, because
one's moving, one's static.
A static one and a moving one. I mean, I would have thought if you're going to ban it, you just ban it.
Well, I think it's about this challenge, isn't it, of enabling free speech, which is so powerful. People, we just talked about Iran. People die. 30,000 people died in Iran to talk freely, to have the democratic rights we have. This is such a powerful thing, and we have to preserve it in this country. But it needs to be balanced with other people's rights of safety. And from what we've seen from the evidence that's been, the letters that's been published by the Met, they had evidence that there was going to be strong counter-protests. It'd be very hard for the police to ensure the protection of both sides of the protesters. And the police are still deploying significant amounts of resources. I think about 1,000 police are going to be deployed. And through a static march rather than a moving march, it's much easier to contain the counter-protesters and the march itself. And I understand there'll be on different sides of the Thames River, which is the new strategy they're using in this instance, to both enable people to have their say, to have their free speech rights, but also to ensure public safety.
Okay.
But it is part of a slippery slope. The way in which our rights are gradually being ebbed away, the right to protest, more and more restrictions.
It is the first time this power has been used since 2012, so 14 years.
This particular power, but there's been so many other instances. On the 31st of January, I was arrested on a Palestine march for holding a placard calling for non-violent resistance against Israel's occupation of Gaza and the West Bank. I'm still on bail. In May the year previous, 2025, on a Palestine march, I was arrested for holding a sign criticising Hamas and exposing the execution of a 22-year-old man. This is the way in which the police are increasingly using extraordinary, exceptional powers in an abusive way to silence free speech. And we have to take a stand against it.
I mean, I don't know whether you're allowed to say much, given it's a live legal case, but I mean,
I'm on bail. I haven't been charged.
Okay, well, I cannot understand the logic of any police officer arresting you for doing that.
Yeah.
I just cannot understand it.
Well, exactly. I mean, they said that my placard, reporting the fact that a young 22-year-old man in Palestine, in Gaza, was executed by Hamas, that was inciting or a public order offence that was aggravated religiously and racially. It was a religiously aggravated public order offence. I mean, it's unbelievable.
I don't not often read out texts in praise of any of our panellists because it just feeds their narcissism. But on this case, here's one from David, who says, "We love Peter, our national hero. Can you please tell him how much he means to the LGBT community and wider society? An absolute legend." So there you are. You've got a fan.
As do many others.
You get a lot of stick, so I thought I'd read that one out. Right. Julie says, "Should Labour be worried that their backbenchers are in defection talks with the Greens?" Not me saying this, it's The Guardian, so it must be true. They're reporting that they're hearing several Labour MPs are in such talks. Well, Danny Beals, it's your opportunity to deny that you are about to defect to the Greens.
I'm very much not defecting to the Greens, and I'm sure they're glad about that too. But I think the leader of the Greens, quite a while ago, was kind of gossiping that there might be defections. I don't think there has been any. Obviously I can't comment about all 400 Labour MPs and their thoughts, but I just say I think you never know what people will do, but I'm certainly not defecting. I believe in the mission of this government. There's a lot to do. There's certainly not been an easy 18 months, and we need to get better as a government. But
well, let's ask a broader question. Do you fear that the Greens could do to Labour what Reform have done to the Conservatives? Because the Greens are above you in a lot of opinion polls at the moment.
Yeah, of course, and opinion polls do shift, and it's a very volatile political environment. We've seen a number of affections in this Parliament from Conservatives to Reform. I'd say I believe that the agenda this government's driving forward, the vast majority of Labour MPs believe in. We know we've got much more to do. We need to improve as a government. The Prime Minister's committed to make a number of changes very recently, which are welcome. But on a number of measures, today we saw the hospital waiting list fall again.
Well, let's not go through the whole list. But the point I'm making is that at the last election, Reform in virtually every Well, Theresa, you would still be an MP if reform hadn't stood in your constituency, wouldn't
I
you?
would be.
And that same sort of thing could happen to you in Ruislip.
The Greens stood last time in my constituency, got several thousand votes. So, yeah, I mean, who knows what will happen at the next election. I think we have to focus on the here and now. I don't think we can triangulate our way or sort of out-green the Greens or out-reform. I think what Labour need to focus on, and I am focused on as MP, is outlining what this Labour government is about. It's not about trying to outmaneuver either party, the Reform or the Greens.
Peter Tatchell, I've slightly lost track because you used to be a Green supporter. Are you still?
Well, I used to be, for many, many years, a Labour Party member.
I know.
A Labour parliamentary candidate.
Yes, indeed. Well, we remember that. Well, I do, anyway.
But I've been party member for 2 decades,
So do you think there could be some defections? And do you think that, I mean, Zach Polanski on my programme, when he was doing the hustings with Adrian Ramsey, he openly said, I'm going to be the Green Nigel Farage, and he's lived up to his promise, hasn't he?
Absolutely. And if I was a Labour MP, I'd be panicked. Labour are tanking in the polls. The projections are that on the current opinion polls, Reform will win the next election handsomely. Nigel Farage will be Prime Minister. Labour will be reduced to about 100 or so MPs. That is profoundly shocking and disturbing. There is basically a choice now. Labour is tanking, the Greens are rising, Reform are rising. It's basically a battle between Greens and the Reform Party as to who's going to form the next government. And at the moment...
I think I saw you nodding your head there, Connie.
Oh, yeah, I completely agree. It's going to be a battle between Green and Reform. What happened in Gorton and Denton, I think, is going to play out in many constituencies across the country. But in terms of Labour and MPs defecting to Greens, it might be in some ways helpful for the Labour Party to get rid of their far-left MPs who don't like, for example, what Shabana Mahmood has proposed in terms of immigration policies and have much less backbench rebellions. But at the same time, obviously, it means that like Peter said, that it will mean that the Green Party has even more strength in Parliament and will maybe create even more of a rallying support behind them throughout the country, not just in sort of constituencies where we have a huge divide like we saw in Gorton and Denton. So, yeah, I think there are pros and cons to the Labour government. Maybe some cabinet ministers might be pleased to see some of them.
But I think the Green Party leader, Zach Polanski, has recently said, he's not really interested in Labour MPs defecting. He wants people to vote Green. And, the relentless focus on the cost of living crisis, on, the core fundamental issues, the desolation of our high streets, which people feel so angry about, the fact that people can't pay...
Maybe they should use them more.
Huh?
Maybe they should use them more then.
Yeah, well, but the local high streets and shops need support in terms of the enormous council tax and rates they're paying. Those kind of issues.
All right, well, let's
shops.
Stick to this issue, Theresa.
Well, as a Conservative, I'm not sure I'm in a good position to be having a go at Labour over their potential defections.
You don't need to have a go, really, but I think you, given what happened to you at the last election, you can probably shed some light on what they might be facing.
Well, the polls are very clear, as Peter says, that the Labour vote has declined considerably since the general election. And I have found that in the conversations I've had on the doorstep in my own neighbourhood in Barnet, that the Labour vote is down significantly and there is a big switch to the Greens. And one thing that you can't help but notice in the media every day is an awful lot of Labour MPs very unhappy with their leadership and with their Prime Minister. It's just routine. We seem to get rebellion after rebellion, a lot of unhappiness. And I think that is down to some very bad decisions that have been made by Keir Starmer, whether it's on winter fuel or family farm tax. There's been bad decision after bad decision followed by U-turns.
Do these developments make you possibly more likely to want to stand again at the next election?
I
ask you this every time you go on.
Yes, I'm not really thinking that far ahead.
Are you not?
It's very hard to predict what will happen at the next general election. I think of all the general elections I've lived through and been involved with, I would have the least idea about how this one will.
You've still got the political virus. It doesn't go away, does it? Otherwise, you wouldn't be here tonight.
Yeah, once it's in your system, it's almost impossible to get out.
Can I just add that one of the big issues is that Keir Starmer, because he won't enact a fair voting system, is handing the prime ministership to Nigel Farage. Nigel Farage, under a fair PR voting system of 28% or 30%, could never be Prime Minister. If we had a fair voting system, there would be no reform Prime Minister.
Who knows what the next election will have in store? Parties have to make their case on their merits. I mean, I must say, I respect you a lot, Peter, but I am surprised that you're so adamant about the Green Party based on their flip-flopping on Putin, their desire to leave
They've
NATO.
Never flip-flopped on Putin. Well, They've been totally consistent.
This week, Zach Balansky said that he would cozy up to Putin, he would talk to Putin, that's the way to resolve the Ukrainian conflict. I mean, come on.
Well, the official Green Party policy is very strongly against the Russian regime and the war in Ukraine.
Looking at what the leader of your party has said, and we know that the position around NATO that the Greens have.
What is that position?
Well, it's to leave NATO. It's not.
No, it's not.
The
position of the Green Party is to reform NATO and to be less dependent on the United States.
But Zach Balansky said he doesn't think it's possible
why
to
that's so
reform
necessary.
NATO.
Sorry?
Zach Balansky said on my programme that he said he doesn't think it's possible to reform NATO from the inside. So that must mean that the policy is to leave.
Well, the official policy of the Green Party, of which I'm a member, I've looked it up, it says our policy is to stay in NATO and to reform it within, to give Britain greater independence and greater trans-European cooperation.
Final word.
I think this is the challenge. I think you're right. Zach is the Nigel Farage of the left. They're both, promising the world. They're blaming easy solutions to all of this country's problems that have been decades long. The truth is, we can't just tax billionaires out of the challenge we face. And equally, it's not just about people on small boats, as Nigel Farage would say. This country faces complex problems, and they require complex solutions.
But billionaires can afford to pay 1 or 2% more tax. That's easy peasy. It's nothing to them. It wouldn't affect them one iota. A 2% tax on people with assets of more than 10 million would raise.
You have made that point before,
24
Peter.
billion a year.
You've made that point before, and we're very late for a break. In fact, incredibly late. It's 8:51. I'm ashamed.
On the latest episode of The Newsagents,
we discuss the Mandelson files. Have we really learned anything new? And Iran, is it an excuse for Keir Starmer to turn away from the US and back toward the EU?
Get the latest episode of The Newsagents with Emily Maitlis, John Sopel and Lewis Goodall. Listen or watch on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
Did you know a new traffic-free Oxford Street is coming? This year, the Mayor of London will begin to pedestrianise London's flagship high street, creating more space for everyone. That means soon you could be hearing less.
Excuse me, coming through.
And more. A bit less.
Come on. Sorry.
And plenty of. To find out more, search Oxford Street Transformation.
OK, who's all in for Cancer Research UK's Race for Life?
We're doing Pretty Muddy.
It's an obstacle course.
There's one for kids.
Runners.
Walkers.
Book clubbers.
Nick clubbers.
10-pin bowlers.
Choir singers.
Lake swimmers.
Gardeners.
Whether you climb it,
slide it,
or crawl it.
Go all in against cancer.
All in to help fund life-saving research.
Sign up now
to your local 3K, 5K, 10K or Pretty Muddy event from just $14.99. Search Race for Life. Prices vary by event distance and participant age.
When you're smiling, don't let missing teeth stop you smiling. At Banning Dental, our experts could restore your beautiful smile with premium dental implants. See online for our price match promise. Banning Dental Group Clinics. Keep on smiling.
Keep on smiling, and the whole world smiles with you.
BanningDental.co.uk.
Hi, I'm looking for a pair of jeans.
Right. Low slung, slouchy, wide leg, bower leg, curved leg, flared, straight or skinny.
Blue?
Fashion. It's hard to keep on top of. Other things, like the upcoming changes to renting, are a bit easier. As a landlord, you will need to get on top of these important changes. They will affect how you manage your tenancies. Act now. Read the guidance at gov.uk/renting is changing.
Cross Question with Iain Dale on LBC.
8:53, Dame Teresa Villas, Peter Tatchell, Danny Beals and Connie Shaw with us taking your questions. Here's one from Kai who says, today it was announced the Treasury Select Committee will have an inquiry to examine whether the student loan system is fair. We can save them some time. It's very clearly not. So what would the panel do to fix this broken and regressive system? Connie, as the youngest member of the panel.
I'm honestly not sure what the solution is, but there are a number of things that I think are really unfair about student loans, not least the fact that we have nurses going to university and having to pay for their courses, and doctors finding it very hard to then get qualified and then find somewhere to go afterwards. It really used to shock me that I had friends doing nursing courses who were paying the same amount as me to go to university, but the amount of contact hours and placements that they were doing to paying themselves to do it, not being paid to do it, was really shocking. But at the same time, I do think that we should have to pay to go to university. I think it's a luxury. I think that the amount of people going to university shouldn't be going. I don't think that I was the sort of person that should be going to university. It wasn't because I didn't go to university because I absolutely loved philosophy. I mean, I liked it as a subject, but I went to uni because I was excited to get away from home. I wanted to go and enjoy the lifestyle of being at university. And it obviously meant I was able to do student radio, and that gave me great opportunities. But I think that the people going to university should be people who are really obsessed with their subject. And I think that for some people, and those people then going into fields that really uses that. I mean, the amount of times you hear people say, so what does your degree give you in terms of, especially if it's a humanities degree? Very little. And I don't think the public should have
would
to
you
pay
be
for
sitting in that seat now?
No, I
not
wouldn't.
Gone to university?
So that's the other thing. If I had not gone to university, I wouldn't have been cancelled, and I wouldn't be doing the job that I am now, although I wasn't really cancelled because I'm doing the job that I am now. But at the same time, had it not, I don't think that when I was 18 leaving school, I don't think that my position was one that I would want most people to take if I could reform the system.
Teresa?
Kemi Badenoch has come up with a set of proposals in relation to what I believe are called Plan 2 student loans, which are the most controversial ones, where there does seem to be an extortionate rate of interest. And so I think that proposal is very important. I continue to support the need of the fact that those who benefit from higher education should be the ones funding it. But the way the system has operated, in particular in relation to the level of interest rates, is not fair and has to be addressed. And Kemi's proposal starts on that process. But I welcome the committee that's being set up in Parliament to try and look at a bigger solution so that we get a fairer balance. Because it's incredibly tough on young people to have these kind of high levels of interest. And so we do need to tackle that and change it.
Danny?
Yeah, I mean, I welcome the Treasury Committee looking at this. I wrote to the Chancellor and the Secretary of State for Education quite recently asking for this to be reviewed. I went to university. I was the first in my family to go. I didn't mind paying £3,000, quite controversial at the time, the fees the Labour government set at that time. But that meant I could get grants as well as loans, that I could afford to go to university. And I recognise what you said, that actually not everyone gets to go to university. Well, actually more than half of my school didn't go. Probably about 75% of my school didn't go to university, and I felt just it being taxpayer funded when their internships and apprenticeships and working in Tesco and joining the armed forces weren't all necessarily getting the same level of support I was. So I didn't mind making a contribution, but I think what we've seen through a number of policy changes, actually ironically many of them under the last Conservative government, despite Kemi now suddenly discovering this as a problem, I think Plan 2 particularly and future loan schemes have become regressive. I think they are becoming a barrier to education. I think I worry about them putting people off who would benefit from going. And I think when you've got 1 in 10 who can afford to pay for fees outright, never having that debt come out of never having that money come out of their paycheck because they're wealthy, that doesn't feel progressive to me. And I think we could do a number of things. We could change the interest rate from RPI plus 3 to CPI. We could change the mechanism of the system in a number of ways. I think the government need to look at this quite closely, and I welcome the Treasury Committee starting that.
Peter?
There's nothing wrong with students or ex-students paying back their loans, but it's the extortionate interest rate that's the problem. I mean, it is organised extortion. To have to pay back the interest rate plus RPI, some students have been paying back over 7%, which is more than double about double what the Bank of England rate is. That's just absolutely outrageous to treat ex-students as cash cows. It's a form of backdoor taxation, and I just think it's no government can possibly defend people having to pay interest rates of over 7%. That's just extortion.
Okay. Right, let's go to our fun question. It's from Andrea in Nantwich. Smith's frontman Morrissey has cancelled a concert in Valencia because he did not get enough sleep the night before. What's the worst excuse you've ever given for cancelling? Teresa.
I think too often I've cancelled things because I've had too much work to do, which I know is a bit feeble. But very often in my life, I suppose I've prioritised work rather than socialising. So that's the best I can come up with in terms of a feeble excuse for cancelling.
Danny?
That's that saying, I work too hard. When you're getting a job interview, what's your downside? I guess we know that excuse about your dog eating your homework. My dog never did, but I had 7 rats, and they did actually once eat my homework. So I guess it wasn't.
What, pet rats?
Yeah, I had 7 pet rats.
You're just weird.
I know.
They're very cute.
They are quite cute.
They're not.
Domesticated rats.
No.
Thank you.
Oh, my goodness.
We'll agree on that.
If only we weren't running out of time, I'd love to quiz you on your rat obsession. Oh, I want to shudder. Peter?
Well, I can put my hand on my heart and say that in 50 years of doing public events, I've only ever missed 2. One was a migraine, a really bad migraine, and the other one, I broke my foot and just couldn't move.
That's a very good excuse. Connie?
I know it's not very exciting, but just being double booked. So much going on, and getting used to having a very busy lifestyle, I suppose.
See, I've just realised that if West Ham get to the FA Cup final on May the 16th, I'm booked to do a speech in Accrington that day. That's going to be a dilemma.
Tough call, that is. That's a tough call.
We won't make it anyway. Thank you all very much indeed for joining us this evening. Monday's panel includes your party leader, Jeremy Corbyn, Lib Dem MP Mike Martin, LBC's own political editor, Natasha Clark. Right, coming up in the next hour. Now, there are many positively giddy onlookers who are seeing commentators who fled the UK for a supposedly better life away from the over-regulation and police statery and danger on British streets to find themselves in a country where criticism of the government is illegal and social media posts by tourists can land them in prison, and now missiles fly overhead. Well, Ed Davey and other populists, I didn't write this bit by the way, are trying to capitalise on laughing at these people and appealing to awful people like me. But is this just cruel nonsense? People moving to Dubai know the decision that they're taking and they're happy to abide by the laws of the land. We also have a moral duty to help them if they need it. Should the populists just grow up?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
leading Britain's conversation, this is LBC.
From Global's newsroom at 9 o'clock, the Defence Secretary has revealed British forces based in Iraq have shot down 2 Iranian drones overnight. The Foreign Office is temporarily withdrawing some staff from the country. John Healey has also revealed Vladimir Putin's hidden hands may be behind some of Tehran's tactics in the Middle East. Former Secretary of State for International Development Rory Stewart has told LBC he wouldn't be surprised.
I think it's very plausible. I mean, there's no doubt at all that Iran seems to be getting very good targeting information. Their ability to try to penetrate bits of Jordan, Bahrain, Kuwait that you wouldn't otherwise expect them to be able to get to. So either they have a far more developed intelligence capacity, including signals and electronic capacity, than we think, or much more likely they're getting aid from someone else.
A statement attributed to Iran's new Supreme Leader Mojtaba Khamenei has been read out on state-controlled television, pledging to continue blocking the Strait of Hormuz. But he hasn't been seen in public since taking power from his father, fueling speculation about his health. Iran expert Kenneth Katzman told LBC there are rumours he may have been seriously injured.
You know, there are reports that he's in a coma. I think that's more consistent with what we're seeing. They first said he had his leg was injured and his eye was bruised. That would not keep you in the hospital for 12 days.
A British man's been detained in Dubai after allegedly filming Iranian missiles in the sky. The 60-year-old has been charged with publishing provocative propaganda that could disturb public security. The charity detained in Dubai says he was one of 21 people charged under cybercrime laws in connection with videos and social media posts relating to the recent missile strikes. A man armed with a rifle has rammed a truck into a synagogue in the US state of Michigan. The suspect was shot and killed by on-site security at Temple Israel in West Bloomfield. A mother of 10 has been jailed for 13 years for keeping a teenage girl as a house slave for more than 2 decades. 56-year-old Amanda Wixon from Tewkesbury was found guilty of forced labour and false imprisonment. The victim, who's now in her 40s, came to live with her as a 16-year-old in 1995. And the news that pictures of animals will replace figures from history on English banknotes hasn't gone down well in Westminster. Nigel Farage says the idea is woke, loony and crackers. In the city, the FTSE 100 has closed down 48 points at 10,305. The pound buys $1.33 and €1.15. LBC weather, wet and windy with heavy rain pushing southeast across England tonight. Clear spells in the early hours, lows of -1. Breezy tomorrow with some sunny spells, blustery showers moving in from the west, highs of 10 degrees. From Global's newsroom for LBC, I'm Daisy Steele.
This is LBC from Global, leading Britain's conversation with Iain Dale.
Hello, a very good evening. It's 9:05 on LBC. Why are people sneering at Brits living in Dubai? Is it just schadenfreude? I think, to me, that's the only explanation it can be, because I think it has been rather reprehensible, actually, to see people just sort of having a good old sneer at British people who have gone to live in a different country. And they will all have their own different reasons for doing so. Yes, I don't particularly enjoy seeing all these supposed influencers being paid huge amounts of money by the Dubai government to promote the wares of Dubai. I mean, who wouldn't do that if you're offered a lot of money to do it? You can't blame them. But the idea that Dubai is this sort of some perfect place to live, I mean, it's never been that way. You look at a lot of the restrictions on people's freedom of speech, and we've just heard in the news there a prime example of that, where somebody has been arrested for taking a video of a drone. I mean, seriously. But I was absolutely, outraged is possibly putting it a little bit too much, but when Ed Davey stood up last week at Prime Minister's Questions and essentially said that the British government should do nothing to help these people who've gone to live in Dubai to come home to Britain because of the war in the Middle East on the basis that they were all tax exiles. Well, some of them may be, but they've got British passports. The role of a British government in a crisis is to help British people, British passport holders, regardless of where they are in the world, regardless of their motivations for going there. And he knows that. He had a gratuitous attack on Isabel Oakeshott, who's the fiancée of Richard Tice, the Reform UK deputy leader. She lives in Dubai now. It was a cheap gag. But is that really what a political party leader should be doing, just indulging in naked populism? If Nigel Farage had said something like that, Ed Davey would be the first to jump down his throat. Now, I've never been to Dubai. I've got no particular desire to go to Dubai. I'm not sure that people like me are particularly welcome in Dubai. And I've never thought of emigrating to any other country. But if I did, I mean, let's say that I went to live in a South American country and that there was some sort of violent coup there. I would expect to be helped by the British government to get out, because that's what you expect. If you've paid your taxes in Britain for no matter how long, you expect your government to come to your aid. So do you, like me, find it a little bit weird, a little bit distasteful that people are constantly sneering at Brits in Dubai because they've gone there, they're living the high life. Yes, they're not paying as much tax as they would if they lived in Britain. Yes, they're probably having quite an extravagant lifestyle. Is it just sort of jealousy that motivates people to sneer at British people who are living in Dubai? Is it the fact that, they are coming under drone attacks from Iran, and people seem to think that in some way is funny? It's not funny, is it? They're British citizens just like you and me. Why do people sneer so much? Are you one of them? Explain it to me. I'm not going to jump down your throat, I promise. Well, not very far anyway. 0345 6060 973. Rada Sterling joins me, Chief Executive of Detained in Dubai, an organisation that provides legal advice for people in the UAE and the Gulf states. Rada, thank you for joining us. Before we start the more general conversation, tell us about this man who's been arrested for, I think, filming a drone.
So a British man was arrested for filming a drone. He says that he didn't circulate it and that police asked him to delete the video, which he did immediately, that he had no ill intent. But he, along with 20 others, have been charged under the UAE's cybercrime laws, and it looks like it might head to prosecution. Since then, we've also received more reports of other people who have been detained for the same thing, for being out with their families, with their children, and looking up into the sky, seeing, something peculiar, pulling out their phone and taking a photo, which they didn't realise was illegal for the most part, especially since they're not sharing it or circulating it on social media. And then immediately a police approaches them, asks to see the phone, shows it, and then suddenly he's arrested, is taken to the police station. So I don't know the exact number of people who have been arrested, but it's growing, and it's possibly in the hundreds by now.
That govern that country?
It's a real issue because the travel advice from the FCDO has been lacking over the years, and Dubai goes to great extents to sort of cover up the strict laws that would maybe be a turn-off to foreign nationals who they want to attract for tourism and for investment and to come and reside in the country. So I think that there is a bit of a lack of awareness, or also awareness of the enforcement of the law, because it is arbitrary. So you see a lot of people posting pictures and images and sharing news stories online. You think that it's okay. And you posting a comment on something that's on Facebook or X, and suddenly you're the one who's arrested. It's inconsistent and it's confusing for foreign nationals. I've long lobbied that airplanes and travel advisories give that sort of information in a written form when people book their flights, when people get on the plane. And I think that would help to thwart some of the arrests that are happening. But again, because the laws are so vague, and especially with cybercrime laws, it criminalises almost anyone who's travelling to Dubai, and therefore you're just hoping that you're not going to be the one who's arrested. I think also influencers there who, promote the country are a little bit immune, unlike a normal British citizen who travels there. So there was a girl who posted a video on social media on TikTok, and she had to go to the police station, but of course she was able to just delete that picture and move on, and in fact then make a sort of propaganda video. So those people are getting away with it, while others who don't have that influence or aren't valued as much by Emirati society are ending up facing 2 years in prison.
Freedom of speech is an issue in many, many countries. But I was reading a report this morning that said that if you criticise Dubai on social media, you can be fined.
I'm sorry, I can't hear any audio.
Can you hear me now?
I can hear
you
now.
I was reading in one of the newspapers this morning that if you criticise Dubai publicly on social media, you can be fined up to £200,000 and indeed face a jail sentence. Now, how many people going to live in Dubai do you think are actually aware of that before they go?
I mean, it has been the subject of much discussion in the United Kingdom and Ireland in particular, where we've had Lala Sharavesh. She was arrested for a post made on her private Facebook years before she even travelled to Dubai. So the UAE's cybercrime laws are extraterritorial, and you can be charged on arrival for something you've done legally in another country. And this happens time and time again. But I think there is a movement that seeks to suppress that truth and convey to maybe a newer generation, younger people, that there's more to those stories than meets the eye. If you look at the case, there'll be a reason why that person was targeted. And there is that movement to kind of blame that person rather than understand that this is actually a systemic issue in the UAE and that people are at genuine risk. I think still, because of the benefits and because of the desire to go there, people have their blinkers on. They have a bias that makes them want to believe and perpetuate the myth that Dubai is a safe place.
But the Dubai government and general, I think, in other parts of the Gulf states, they are paying influencers, young influencers, and as far as I can see, generally young, beautiful female influencers, to basically send out the message that Dubai is this wonderful place that everyone enjoys themselves, everyone has a good time. And it's just not the truth, is it? I mean, should these influencers really be pocketing the money that they're taking in this way? And have you any idea how much they're being paid to do that?
The UAE has a huge budget. I'm not sure exactly what it is now, but certainly it encouraged a lot of influencers to move there and to go through this influencer training course that the UAE has. And we've got to remember, UAE is a very controlling society, that journalists and news houses in the country are given guidelines on what they're allowed to publish. They seek permission from authorities before they publish items in the media, and there is heavy controls. So influencers, and we've had to help many of them actually. There is this army of influencers that's noticeably increased in the last year or so. But before that, there's been a lot of influencers who have got into trouble themselves and had to seek to escape or try to avoid prison sentences. I think only in a few cases it's only been their profile that's helped them. It is, in a sense, negligent to promote that Dubai is extremely safe when, the information out there and, the information has been reviewed in the court system as well. I mean, the United Kingdom won't extradite people to the UAE because of the real risk of human rights abuses, torture, and discrimination within the legal system. And that is an issue. We just had a British grandfather, Albert Douglas, who returned from Dubai. He was beaten and tortured according to an independent investigation by authorities in the UAE. So it's very serious, some of the issues there. We've had reports of gang rapes, women who have been abused, and then they themselves have been locked up for complaining about it, or in Tori Tui's case, for attempted suicide as she was fleeing domestic violence. There are so many issues there that make Dubai unsafe. But I think the core issue is the legal system, that the arbitrary enforcement of the law can see anyone jailed, and when they are jailed, they could be subject to grave abuses. We did have a death in custody, Lee Bradley Brown, and we've had numerous reports of human rights abuses within the system there too. Right now, you have just normal people being thrown in prison. Are they also going to be subject to the same sort of abuse that these prior British citizens were?
Just finally, I could not broadcast this radio show from Dubai, could I? Because I would be in constant fear that something that I might say would upset the authorities.
Well, certainly. I think you'd be taken off to a national security prison and interrogated. But absolutely, and this was a real issue during the Princess Haya case, for example, that was really high profile in the Princess Latifa case. The journalists there really wanted to cover it, but they simply were not allowed. And in fact, they were afraid. And a lot of them fled the country at that point. A lot of journalists went back to Canada, went back to the United Kingdom for fear of their reporting on these particular cases, landing them in national security jail.
Thank you very much indeed for joining us, Radha. That's Radha Sterling from Detained in Dubai. I suppose one point I should make is that we can, during the course of the next 45 minutes, deprecate the system in Dubai and disapprove of some of the human rights abuses, the attacks on freedom of speech. But they are the laws of that country. And anybody that goes to that country has to abide by the laws, just as they would do if they went to Saudi Arabia or, dare I say it, Iran. Oh, controversial. 0345 6060 973. Why are people sneering at Brits living in Dubai? And do you agree with me that wherever you are in the world, if you hold a British passport, if you are a British citizen, you deserve the protection of the British government? And that the fact that some of the people that go to Dubai because they don't want to pay as much tax as they would in this country, that is a complete side issue and does not mean that they do not deserve the protection of the British government. 19 minutes past 9.
This is LBC. Listen on the move with the LBC app.
You've probably been with the same energy supplier for decades. And why wouldn't you be? Loyalty matters. But lately, bigger hasn't always felt better. You've probably dealt with long waits and endless automated menus in search of someone who can actually help. Octopus Energy is now Britain's biggest energy supplier, trusted by over 8 million customers, because we do things differently. Our people focus on the most important thing, you. When you call, you'll speak to a real person. No robotic scripts, no computer says no, just an honest conversation with someone who actually wants to help. Join the millions who've already made the move. Octopus Energy, recommended by Which? A record 9 years running. Visit octopus.energy/better for verification.
So, what's on your to-do list today? Why don't you check if you're eligible for pension credit? It tops up your pension income and also opens up help with heating bills, council tax, and more. Search pension credit on gov.uk or call 0800 99 1234. There's nothing to lose. Check today. Pension credit. Credit where credit's due. Eligibility criteria apply.
At Pets in a Pickle, we're here when it matters most. For fuss-free pet insurance policies as unique as they are, visit petsinnerpickle.co.uk.
Iain Dale, text 84850. This is LBC.
9:20. Why are people sneering at Brits living in Dubai? If you're living in Dubai and would love to contribute to the conversation, we would love to hear what you have to say. Let's go to Mairead, who's in Ramsbottom in Manchester. Hello, Mairead.
Hi, how are you?
Good, thank you. What would you like to tell us?
I lived out in not quite Dubai, but near there in Al Ain. I also lived in Saudi Arabia. I'm a nurse, and I initially went out because I couldn't earn enough money to get on the property ladder, and the wages, the tax-free wages, got me over there, and it helped me save money. I stayed out there a bit longer than I planned because I met my husband out there and had kids. We came back here a few years ago. But if I was still there, I would absolutely expect the government to help.
Yeah.
To help us home. I know people sneering about people still living in the UAE, that they live extravagant lifestyles. I know I certainly did. Didn't.
Bit of a slip of the tongue there, Mairead. I bet you were out on the Raz every night, weren't you?
Not with 3 kids, no. But it was a means to an end. For us, we wouldn't have been able to have the house that we have if we hadn't have gone over there and earned money. I mean, what brought us back was the human rights record. I'm married to a Nepalese man, and unfortunately, Nepalese. A lot of the Asian countries are treated very differently to people like me. I'm a white Westerner. My Filipino Indian colleagues I was paid 3-4 times more than them
for doing the same job.
For doing the same job, qualified nurses doing the same job. We were paid a lot more, and one of the reasons we came home, we just couldn't live with that. My children are mixed race. We didn't want them being brought up in a community where they were seen as lesser people. So, here we are back in Ramsbottom.
And did you have to moderate your behaviour? Were you conscious of the fact that the speech laws there meant that you, in theory, could be arrested for some sort of minor infraction?
Yes and no, but in Saudi Arabia definitely when we were there. But in Dubai, I didn't experience or feel that I couldn't speak out in a way. But I suppose I did. I think that was always over us, especially if I spoke out at work about equal pay. I suppose that I would have before I went on social media, that would have crossed my mind. I always thought when I got home I'd write a book about it all, but then I'd probably worry that I'd get in trouble.
I don't think they could come and grab you.
Not in Ramsbottom, no.
You'd hope not. Mairead, fascinating. Thank you very much indeed for that. Justin says, why are we sneering at Brits who live in Dubai? Because they'd rather live in a garish culture vacuum than pay tax in their home country and contribute to the society that supported them through life until they left in the name of greed and self-interest. Well, that's assuming that every single person did do that. I mean, some of the reasons that people give for moving out of this country, I think, are for the birds. It's as if they think that this country is one of the worst in the world, when clearly anybody with half a brain can work out that it is not. I mean, some of the reasons Isabel Oakeshott gave for moving to Dubai, well, I mean, utterly preposterous. We do not live in a police state. London is not the most unsafe city in the world, but very, very far from it. And yet this narrative has built up that life in this country is somehow awful. Well, if it was, and if you genuinely think it is, well, first of all, you need your head read. And if you go abroad for valid reasons, where you've maybe got family and friends in a country that you want to live in, maybe not forever. But there are so many people that go abroad, whether it's Dubai or wherever else. Australia is another one. That seems to be the sort of pet country at the moment. I mean, even apparently New Zealanders are even emigrating to Australia, which I must admit I was a bit surprised by. The grass is not always greener, is it? Maybe you're somebody who's moved to another country because you've been persuaded that it would be so much better than living in Blighty. And then in the end, you come to the realization, actually, it's not. Has that happened to you? But going back to the main question, I mean, Dubai is the sort of subject at the moment. There are plenty of other places in the Middle East that you could say are the same, all sorts of other areas in the Gulf states. But do you feel that maybe you didn't make the right decision, particularly with what's going on in Iran? 0345 6060 973. Alex is in Wandsworth. Hello, Alex.
Iain, hi.
Hi.
I've been listening to you for many, many years and never called in, but this subject really made me pick up the phone.
Great.
I'm an estate agent in southwest London, and over the recent years, I've seen many of my peers and colleagues slate the UK and get out to Dubai to be a realtor out there. And, it's utter nonsense.
I watched a documentary not that long ago about people who've gone to Dubai in property, and it seemed to be a very sort of false existence in many ways.
Yeah, they sort of advertise it, sort of tax-free, all the rest of it. And the people that have gone out there, they've been treating Dubai like it's a part of Essex. They've forgotten this is in the Middle East, and that bubble was going to burst. Now it's burst, and the people that were going out to Dubai were sort of leaving the UK, saying how bad it is here, and now, look at it, they now want to come back, and they're going to come back with their tail between their legs, quite frankly, and I think obviously it's awful out there what's going on, and I do feel for people that I know that have gone there. I've had a client today who lives in Abu Dhabi. She's English, moved out there 5 years ago, and she's having to literally evacuate with her children because all these sort of bombings are going off, and very, very scary. But you think, I told you so. This was never going to last, and now it's awful. So, yeah.
Can I just pick you up on something, Alex?
Yeah.
You hinted that you had a pretty negative view of Essex, and being an Essex boy myself, I take great exception to that.
Well, they're out there. It's all very shiny. It's all sort of very new. And Dubai.
How is that like Essex?
Well, I just think
you're just going on the TV program, aren't you?
Particularly on the estate agents. You know what they're like. They're all having champagne, etc. It's just they're doing that in Dubai, and that's never going to last because it's in the Middle East and it's trouble out there. So yeah.
So are your friends that have gone out there, are they wanting now to come back?
Yes, they really are. And they can't get back because there's no flights.
Yeah.
So I think, I think all would have coming back now.
And what will you say when you see them when they're back?
Well, I think they'll be coming back with their tail between their legs. And, it's going to be interesting for sure.
Alex, thank you very much indeed. Mark says, the ones being sneered at are the ones who keep banging on about having done it and openly bragging about it. They've left the country that educated and helped them grow to live in what is essentially one massive gated community and pay little tax. But if they didn't brag, no issue. But they just gob off about it and mock people for staying here and supporting their homeland. That's from Mark in Leeds. I have a lot of sympathy with that, Mark, because I know it's an old stereotype, but it's like, how do you know when someone's a vegan? Because they tell you that they are a vegan. And it's similar with people who leave this country to go to Dubai. Generally, not all, but generally, they've got some sort of superiority complex about it. I've got, I hope she's not listening, but I've got friends who moved to Spain from this country, and I am sick to death of whenever we speak, they slag off the country that they lived in for many, many, many years, and say about how wonderful Spain. Oh, I'm sure Spain is a wonderful country. I've visited them many times and I enjoy it, and I'm sure many people do, but it just galls me that people just sometimes, all they delight in doing, and I think this is a particularly British trait, I don't think this happens necessarily with people from other countries, that they love slagging off their own country. What's that all about? It's 9:30, news headlines on LBC with Daisy Steele.
Iran's leader Ayatollah Mojtaba Khamenei has vowed to avenge the blood of Iranians in his first statement since taking power, warning the Strait of Hormuz will remain blocked. He hasn't been seen since being appointed supreme leader on Monday, fueling rumours he was seriously injured in an airstrike and may have lost a leg. A British man has been detained in Dubai for allegedly filming Iranian missiles in the skies. The 60-year-old has been charged with publishing what's been described as provocative propaganda. A gunman has been shot dead after he attacked a synagogue and a school in Michigan in the United States. Officers say the vehicle was driven inside the temple and then caught fire. No children or staff were hurt. LBC weather, wet and windy with heavy rain pushing southeast across England tonight. Clear spells in the early hours, lows of -1.
Hey, smart speaker. Play LBC.
Good morning, I'm Nick Ferrari. It's time to get to your calls.
First-time caller, a little bit nervous.
Thanks for taking my call. Thanks for taking my call.
They have no Navy, they have no Air Force, and they have no leadership. We could call it a tremendous success right now, or we could go further, and we're going to go further.
Hear every side of the story.
Why do people think that Trump wants to bring democracy to Iranians while he's dismantling democracy in his own country?
There is a general feeling within our government that defence is something that we have to vastly up because of what's happening in the world, and they will find a way of doing it.
Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app. LBC, leading Britain's conversation.
Hi, I'm looking for a pair of jeans.
Right. Low slung, slouchy, wide leg, bower leg, curved leg, flared, straight or skinny.
Blue?
Fashion. It's hard to keep on top of. Other things, like the upcoming changes to renting, are a bit easier. As a landlord, you will need to get on top of these important changes. They will affect how you manage your tenancies. Act now. Read the guidance at gov.uk/renting is changing.
What's the best present you ever got for your birthday? I bet it wasn't as life-changing as £1 million. Every week with the birthday draw, there's £1 million to be won. And you can enter from as little as £1 or via post. Enter by midnight on Sunday and your special day could win you £1 million. Visit thebirthdaydraw.com. Is it your lucky day? From Global and ITV. 18 plus, UK only, no purchase necessary.
Train to Chichester. Flasks filled, snacks packed, all ready for Maisie's first stargazing adventure.
Come on, Maisie. Follow everyone up to the top of that hill. Oh, look, that one's the plough. Shooting star! Oh, wow!
Made it. Last train back and feeling cosmic. And it seems we have an astronaut in the making. Download the Southern Railway app to book kids' tickets for £2 on off-peak journeys. Southern Railway, where every stop is a story.
Iain Dale on LBC.
It's 9:34 on LBC. Why are people sneering at Brits living in Dubai? I think that this is something, there was a long article about this in the Daily Mail this morning, which is not the reason that we're doing it, but it is interesting that it has become a matter of discussion. This is a text, anonymous. Do put your names on texts. The Brits in Dubai get sneered at because they tend to slag off the UK, which built most of their success. It's becoming the Ibiza of the Middle East, full of nouveau riche tattooed Brits. Well, I don't imagine that they're getting their tops off in the clubs in Dubai like they do in Ibiza. So I have heard. I've never been to Ibiza, but it's not too late, is it? I've got 3 guys and a lady behind, all absolutely howling with laughter at the prospect of me getting my top off in Ibiza. I'm tempted to do it and send you all inappropriate pictures of it, but I won't because I might lose my job. Let's go to Ali, who's in Leicester. Ali, hi.
Hi, Ian. Honestly, the fact that some people are sneering at people living in Dubai, I think it just speaks to the wider fact that we've now become a country that doesn't celebrate success. We don't celebrate people seeking a better life. And I don't know, I just feel like we've become a country of envy, more or less, in the last few years.
I think that is absolutely true. And it's, you partly see this in a normal political debate. We had it in the last hour, where Peter Tatchell, his answer to everything is to tax billionaires. Well, I'm sure we can have a debate about whether the billionaires are taxed enough or not, but when it's the solution to every single problem to tax the rich, is it any wonder that so many rich people are leaving the country? And that's not an assertion, that's not an opinion, it's a fact.
But yeah, exactly. Like we no longer celebrate wealth creation, right? And I've even seen some people on the left that, rightly or wrongly, want to do this out of ideology, not out of economics. They just believe that it's unfair that billionaires should exist in the first place, irrespective of whether they're a net positive or not. And it's honestly kind of scary. I don't want people to be punished for having ambition. I don't want those to be an overtaxed country.
Yeah. Well, I totally agree with you. I think we've lost any sense of what it means to be a wealth-creating society. People don't understand the meaning of the word entrepreneur. They don't understand the meaning of incentives. So therefore, if people feel that they're going to be penalised for being successful in business, why would you bother to start one in the first place?
Yeah, that's exactly it. People are just going to leave the country, and we're going to be like the rest of Europe, which has had, low growth or no growth, actually, and stagnating, when we should be more like America. I mean, that's what made Britain the great country that it is that we were different to Europe, right? And that's why the Anglosphere is the best place in the world that people want to live in, people want to move in.
What do you think? I mean, is this a trend that can be reversed? Do you think that we can recreate the spirit that I think this country did have in the 1980s, when there was a lot of people who sort of decided that they were going to be successful? And I mean, there was all this sort of, you sound as if you're probably too young to remember this, Ali, but there was a Harry Enfield, the comedian, used to do this character called Loads of Money, and it was said to sort of symbolise the 1980s. And on the left, people thought that this was terrible. But most normal people thought, well, yeah, there is nothing wrong with wealth creation. There is nothing wrong with aspiring to be successful. But at the moment, success seems to be penalised.
I do think it's fixable, just like I feel like most problems that UK is facing is fixable. But I just fear that to get there, what it will take is having some shock therapy. Things are probably going to have to get worse before they get better, right? And that's ultimately what I fear, is that if we don't wake up now, that in 10 years' time, I'm not even sure we have 10 years, that things are going to be so much worse.
Well, I hope you're wrong, but I do fear for things. If we carry on this way, we are going to drive more and more people to think that the grass is greener on the other side. And for some people it may be, but for many it won't be. Anthony says, I guess I sneer at them because they've sneered at everyone here. It's fine here. We're all rich now. You suckers and losers in the UK don't know what you're missing, they say. Then, oh no, why are we under attack? Because you're in one of the most unsafe regions on the planet, you left one of the safest to go there. For what? For the love of money. I don't mind people being rich, but the idea that money trumps safety or duty or morality, I find Disgusting, says Anthony. John is in Mill Hill. John, hello.
Oh, hi, Ian. Just a few things really there come to mind. Lastly, you were talking about billionaires would be leaving the country to save tax, and they would probably end up in places like Dubai or Monaco or wherever. And I think I'd bring it back to Ed Davies' point that he wasn't actually saying that we shouldn't support Britons coming back, but maybe they should pay for the flights. I think that was his point. I don't think he was saying that we wouldn't support a Briton anywhere in the world. It's just that maybe we know that these people have been taking advantage of, a lifestyle, which, perhaps they should pay for. We're sending out forces at taxpayers' cost to Cyprus or to the Middle East. Even if they're defensive, which I believe is correct, then why shouldn't we do that and they do their part as well?
Well, my understanding is people do pay for their flights back.
Well, that wasn't what was implied by...
No, I know it wasn't, but Ed Davies should know better.
Really? And is that confirmed? Can you actually confirm that?
My understanding, and this was from a newspaper article about a week ago, where they were saying that the flights that the British government puts on to bring people back, the people coming back do have to pay. I don't know what they pay, whether it's a commercial rate, whether it's subsidised or what.
Can you refer to the newspaper?
Can't remember.
You see, this is the problem we have. It's like, do we have proper information about anything that goes on?
Well, James will be Googling this as we speak, I'm sure, but I'm pretty sure I'm right that is the policy.
That was not the policy that was advocated when I heard it first. And it was Ed Davies that brought it up, that made it an issue, perhaps. And maybe there's been a reaction to that. I don't know of other than that.
Well, we've got 90 minutes to get to the bottom of it, so we'll find out. And if I'm wrong, I will admit it. But all I can say is what I seem to remember reading. Thank you very much, John. Pete says, I've been to Dubai loads of times. It's okay, nothing special. Seen the religion police beating up a Westerner. Didn't go after that. Let them go, look after them in an emergency, but tax them in the UK just like the Americans do. Alistair's in Cardiff. Hello, Alistair.
Hello, Ian. We've spoken a few times. My opinion on Dubai, if someone's got a passport, British passport, anywhere in the world, it's the British government's job to try and get them back safely. As for living out there, I wouldn't do it because of a lot of the things you've highlighted. I've served in the British Army for 24 years all over the world. And the one thing I loved was coming back to Britain. However, I find myself now applying for Irish passport. My cousin's just got his, citizenship. My cousin's just been accepted. My sister's about a month away from being accepted. I'll be doing the same just so I can gain the European passport. I did vote for Brexit, but for reasons to do with, sovereignty and bringing the courts back to Britain and having our own say in our future. But the reason I want to highlight is in this country here, we've had 12,000 people arrested for free speech or tweeting hurty words. So we kind of really criticise a country that arrest people and whatever because they're posting videos of missiles landing, just try to keep people calm in that country. But the tax in this country, I pay high rate tax only because I'm in receipt of an army pension. And I'm of the opinion now that I'm just giving money over to a government, and the last government, I won't just say it was the Labour, but they do nothing with my money that I appreciate now. They throw money at the NHS hand over fist. It reminds me of that film, The Money Pit, the house. They just keep throwing money into it and it just burns it away. But you see no improvement in standards of living, nothing. And I'm just sick sick to the back teeth of them attacking our pensions, going on about people who got triple lock. I mean, triple lock to a pensioner now, you'd be lucky if you could afford a cost of coffee every day for a year for what you would get off the government. So I've paid in since I was 16. I joined the army in 1978, and I've paid all the way through. I've had 8 redundancies, but I had 1 day unemployed in 8 redundancies since I came out of the army. That goes to show that I'm a hard-working patriot. But if I'm applying for citizenship so I can take my pension away and not pay as much tax on it and not have other savings raided by the Labour government because of the policy of envy, politics of envy, then I think I have to look after me, my wife, who I've been married to for 46 years, and hopefully spend what I've earned in a maybe even a sunny climate. But I do love this country, and that's as much as I need to say on it, Ian.
But you've applied for Irish citizenship, but you're not going to move there.
I'm most definitely not going to move to Ireland, no, because I've served a lot of tours in Northern Ireland, and obviously it's not a place I want to settle. But I do fancy getting a place in Spain or Portugal or Greece or Cyprus, and maybe even just a holiday let. But I want to be able to go out in the winter, enjoy the go out in the winter from here.
Hang on a minute.
Yeah.
Several people, as you might imagine, are texting in saying, in the words of Nan of Catherine Tate, what an effing liberty. You're being a complete hypocrite. You voted for Brexit and now you're doing this.
I didn't vote for Brexit because of immigration. I voted for Brexit because...
Yeah, but you knew what the consequences would be, that you wouldn't be able to necessarily do what you did before.
If we didn't have a Brexiteer with Theresa May and our cohorts doing all the deals and the ready deals that Boris had, if we had gone through it properly, had been structured, and we had finished on good terms, I don't believe that Brexit would be as harmful as it is now. Now, for me to say that I'm going to holiday abroad or buy a place abroad just to see the end of my days out, having paid for since I was 16, 1978, and I've still got 3 years till I retire. I think I've paid more than £1 million odd quid over that time. I'm paying upwards of £30,000 in tax as it is because of both my pension. And lots of people are going to go, oh, poor you, which I can understand that, because when I was earning a private's wage in the British Army and I was living off handouts from my family, I went through all that. But now I'm in the last few years of my life, I'd like to spend that in a warm climate and have the choice of what happens to my pensions and stop.
Yeah, but I go back to my initial point. Anybody that voted for Brexit, as I did, must have done it in the full realisation that they would not have the same residency rights in Europe as they would have done before.
I understand that, but look how the country's... we've got a Prime Minister that doesn't know if a woman can have a penis.
What's that got to do with the price of fish?
It's got to do with the way this country is becoming. If we get a Green Party, it'd be worse. We got people getting locked up for free speech and stuff like that, Ian. And my main point is, I want to be able to spend my pension and not have it raided ad hoc by chancellors like...
people are getting locked up for free speech in Dubai. They probably are in Spain, France, Germany, across Europe as well.
But you know that when you go there. But the thing is, I lived and worked and served the British government to make us free around the world and make sure that the Union flag that I wore on my shoulder was respected around the world. We're a laughing stock now. We can't even send one ship to Cyprus unless by the time they go there, everything will be over.
Well, I agree, but that's no reason to... I mean, I would say that's actually a reason to stay and try and persuade our future governments that they need to act rather differently, rather than have a cop-out and go and live in some sunny clime and sort of, well, whatever.
Well, Ian, obviously, I've been banging my head against the wall for a while. Hang on a minute.
I don't think we can hang on a minute on the radio, Alistair, but thank you very much indeed for your call. We'll come to more of your calls in a moment. You might want to react to what Alistair has been saying. 0345 6060 973. It's 9:49.
Coming up at 10 on LBC, Ben Kentish.
Nigel Farage says Britain should have joined the war in Iran, which he reckons is a bigger threat to us than Putin. Has he shown he's not fit to be Prime Minister? Plus, why do so many Brits want to go and live in places like Dubai?
Ben Kentish at 10. Listen on our free Global Player app or the LBC app.
It's hard to concentrate when you're worried about your health. It can feel like there's a wall between you and the rest of the world, like you can't be fully present.
Hello, AXA Health. How can I help?
At AXA Health Insurance, we build our teams with people who care. So when you need us, we're here to support you. For cover that cares, search AXA Health Insurance. Pre-existing conditions are not covered.
Chase is the digital bank that gives you 1% cash back on groceries.
So, can I get cash back on cake mix?
Indeed.
And icing?
Yep.
And sprinkles?
Sure.
And candles?
Yeah, and you can turn all that cash back into a nice birthday treat.
How do you know it's my birthday?
Just a hunch. Get 1% cash back on groceries, fuel and everyday transport when you spend with Chase. Search Chase Bank. 18 plus UK residents. 1% cash back on this debit card spending for your first year. Maximum £15 per month. Eligibility and exceptions apply. May be changed or withdrawn.
Jay here knows that Zoopla can provide valuations for any home in the UK. So we can see what that new couple across the road might have paid.
Ooh la la.
Have a nose at what the curtain twitchers next door could sell for. And even see what his own place is worth.
Cool, look at that.
Plus, Zoopla lets you find and compare local estate agents if you do decide to sell up. Think of all those new neighbours you'll be able to snoop on, Jay. If you want to know, just ask Zoopla.
I'm Leah, and this is my NHS story. I could just feel my body didn't feel right, so my GP referred me to CDC. Had some blood tests done, and within 24 hours I had my results. And that just reassured me that I was being taken seriously.
The government is opening new community diagnostic centres, with many already available 12 hours a day, 7 days a week, so the NHS can be there for all of us when we need it. Find your closest one at gov.uk/NHS Fit for the Future. Available England-wide.
This is LBC with Iain Dale. Call 0345 6060 973.
9:51. I sort of feel I discovered my inner James O'Brien with that last call on Brexit, didn't you? Was it a bit like, yeah? See what I mean? Jane says, Ian, I wish nothing but safety to all Brits in Dubai. I'm not laughing or sneering. But these people do not contribute to the UK. But as soon as the going gets tough, those of us here, taxpayers, have to help them. Now, it's not true that they haven't contributed to the UK, because they will have contributed in taxes before they went. And if you have a British passport, that does give you, I think, certain rights to expect your government to come to your aid in times of need. Now, I don't think that people in Dubai are necessarily in massive danger. I don't think there's been a single example of a Brit being injured by these drone strikes so far. That may happen, but I can completely understand that people are rather fearful. Anyway, Jane continues, I think there is a case that if you want to keep your British citizenship, you should still pay something by way of tax. This is one thing I believe the US expects of its citizens, and it makes sense, I think. That is the American system. You're absolutely right. I don't know the ins and outs of it, but I always think double taxation is a bit unfair. I mean, if you're paying, for example, if you're paying upwards of 50% of your income in tax and national insurance in this country, should you really be expected to pay that if you live in a foreign country? I mean, that seems to me intrinsically unfair. Paul says, 10 years ago, Iain Dale, yeah, that's me, was in favour of his country asserting its sovereignty and laws. Absolutely right, Paul. Today, Iain Dale is against another country asserting its sovereignty and laws. How dare they? I haven't said that at all. In fact, I've said exactly the opposite. I remember specifically saying about 20 minutes ago that if you go to another country, you have to respect its laws. I think we can all argue about whether some countries' laws are right or not. I certainly think that many countries in the Middle East have very repressive laws, and I would like to see those countries change them. But if I go to that country, it's incumbent on me to respect the laws of that country, which is why I don't go to Middle Eastern countries, because as a gay man, why would I? I mean, I'm not a fool. I'm not going to put myself in danger going to a country that does not respect the fact that I have a right to be what I am. I did go to Lebanon back in 1992. I think that is the only Middle Eastern country apart from Israel that I've ever been to. But I respected the laws of Lebanon at the time. Let's go to James, who is in Camden. Hello, James.
Hello.
What would
Good
you like to
evening.
say?
I was just struck by your last caller. I have huge sympathy for him because although I voted Remain, and I do have most of my family served in the British Army dating to every single conflict back to the Boer War, I also have a foreign passport. I have a Portuguese passport because I'm one of the very few people who was granted it because of guilt of Portugal, because my family were booted out just before the Inquisition got into full flow in about 1580 from Portugal and 1492 from Spain. And I felt very grateful to get it. I felt very guilty when I applied for it.
How could you? Did you have to prove that? I mean, that's going back quite a long way, isn't it?
Because we are strangely incestuous, the Spanish and Portuguese community. We call ourselves the Spanish and Portuguese community. And most people marry many, many cousins all over the place. And we kept very much together because we were the first and very small. And most people think of Jews, they think of long curly hair and kippot and the Jewish hats. But actually that's the Eastern European, the Ashkenazim. We're the minority. We've been here a long time. And we came here just after Cromwell let us back in. And that's how it goes. So my family name is De Sola. My kids carry it. But when we were offered it, and it was this is long before Brexit, I didn't want to take it because I felt I was letting the country down. We still feel we're guests here, and we're grateful for the liberties we have in this fantastic country. And I am not leaving. And I have friends who are Jewish who frankly stoke fear. And it's just not good enough. People need to stay here and fight for this fantastic country. Yes, it's got some problems. We go through cycles of problems, of depressions, of all sorts of things. But the values that this country have are fantastic. How many countries do not need a passport for you to walk around? You can do what you want to do unless you get in someone's way. We have juries. We have cricket,
at the moment,
which ends up in a draw. I mean, what a fantastic game. It is a brilliant country. It's so good that most Jews who had problems across the world, across Europe, came to Britain or the Commonwealth because they knew it respected other people. It's an incredible place. And that's why as soon as we were here, we've signed up for public services, doctors. Obviously, when we arrived, we had nothing. Poor as church mice, if you could say church mice. And we worked our way up. But most of my family have joined the army because they want to fight for the country. One on my side who came from Russia, fleeing the Tsars, as soon as they got here, they formed what was called the Tower Hamlets Rifles. There was a call-out in about 1859 for volunteer regiments. And the Jewish poor formed regiments, and that's where one of my great-great-grandpa fought. And I've got his letters from Balaclava. Disproportionate numbers of Anglo-Jews served in all the wars, in particular we still call the Great War, the First World War, and the Second World War. Why? Because it's a brilliant place. And, everyone wants to attack it. And the reason why everyone wants to put it down is because there's a lot of evil, nasty people in countries who some of them we might call our friends, certain forces in the States and certainly in Russia, who destabilise us.
Yeah, James, I've got to leave it there because we're nearly at the end of the programme, and I just want to clarify, those eligible for government flights from Dubai are being asked to pay for seats. Thank God I was right. And I will give the final word to Iain, who says, Dubai has a rollicking gay scene. Well, I'll never know, will I? Thank you for all of your calls and messages this evening. It's been quite a show. I'll be back on Monday from 7. Now, if you missed any of this evening's show, you can listen back on our free Global Player app or the LBC app, where you can stay up to date with all the latest news, videos and opinion. Download the official LBC app for free from your app store. Coming up at 1 on LBC, it's Clive Bull, but right now, it's Ben Kentish.
Iain, thank you very much indeed. Hello there. A very good evening to you this Thursday night. Ben Kentish here with you on LBC. Coming up, Nigel Farage today repeating his claim that Britain should have joined the war in Iran. Why? Because he says the Iranian regime poses more of a threat to this country than Vladimir Putin, which I think it's fair to say is certainly not the view of most actual security experts. But Farage is, of course, a man who once described Putin as the leader he most admired. And if he had his way, this country would have rushed headfirst into Donald Trump's war in Iran from the very start. Do the last couple of weeks, in your view, show that Farage is still not ready to be Prime Minister? Is foreign policy going to be the issue that costs him the next election? Because really, would you trust him to lead this country in a time of war?
On your radio, on the LBC app, and
Play LBC.
Leading Britain's conversation. This is LBC.